Chapter 1600. Hang these bells made from the eyes of the treasure cave golden toad on the pouch made from the skin and stomach. Baidu search. The two come from the same source and can be used at the same time. Little Yuan, I will enter this bell first. I'll be waiting for you to take me to see the scenery of the swamp world. Lin Yuan suddenly heard the Moon Empress mentioning her death. Tears welled up in her eyes and she blurted out. Master, you formed a contract with the lifespan rat, so you have endless lifespan. How could he die? When the Moon Empress saw Lin Yuan's expression, she was stunned. He reached out and gently rubbed the hair on top of Lin Yuan's head. The Moon Empress realized that Lin Yuan had grown a little taller. When Lin Yuan had asked about the Moon Empress's red moon situation, the Moon Empress had said nothing. The Moon Empress hesitated for a moment. This was because the Moon Empress would understand best. Something that was regarded as a trump card could only be kept a secret. Use it when you need it. Only then would he be able to turn the tide. 10 years ago, the Moon Empress had only been Her Highness for less than 20 years. However, the Moon Empress was able to annihilate the Freedom Federation and had been an empress for over 200 years. Even though he was heavily injured, he managed to save his own life. With 13 or 14 years of respite, he went to search for the inheritance. It was because no one knew the Moon Empress trump card. However, when Lin Yuan asked about it, the Moon Empress only hesitated for a moment. He then told Lin Yuan about his trump card. It was because he trusted Lin Yuan. It was also because the Moon Empress understood the true essence of the inheritance. Inheritance was nothing more than doing everything one could to nurture. While he was in seclusion, what happened at the Whale Ocean Trading Company? This proved that Lin Yuan had become Hui Yao's backbone. He was actually able to accomplish something that even His Majesty could not accomplish. However, the Moon Empress trusted Lin Yuan unconditionally. However, he still did not want to dig deeper into Lin Yuan's trump cards. Baidu search in the legacy, the Moon Empress would only choose to do what was most beneficial to Lin Yuan. Even the Moon Empress was curious as to what method Lin Yuan had used. Only then did he enter the swamp world. Silly child, I'm just telling you a principle. This should count as the first time I've accepted you as my disciple. This is the lesson I've taught you with all my heart. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan took a deep breath. Lin Yuan had no idea about his current strength. He was already a little complacent. However, the Moon Empress words made Lin Yuan suddenly realize something. He shouldn't have set his sights on the younger generation. Because of his true enemy. They had never been members of the same generation. Instead, it was the Freedom Envoy of the Freedom Federation, Your Majesty. The Imperial Mermaid Clan of the 8 clans of the Sea Empire. Even the 8th page of the Pagoda Canon. Therefore his strength was far from enough. The Moon Empress placed Zhou on the ground and said, Zhou, go pick some fruits. Wait for me and Little Yuan to come back. Hearing this, Zhou's ears twitched. He knew that the Moon Empress didn't want to bring him along because he was too curious. Zhou was a little envious of Lin Yuan. The Moon Empress's kindness toward Lin Yuan had reached the level of pampering. Fortunately, the Moon Empress doted on him. It was truly fortunate that Lin Yuan had not gone astray. If it had been anyone else, they would probably have been pampered by the Moon Empress. He would become a condescending second-generation ancestor. Lin Yuan held the bell that the Moon Empress had just given him. It was attached to the treasure cave golden toad's skin and stomach pouch. Then Lin Yuan used the treasure cave golden toad's bell to put the Moon Empress inside. At the same time, Lin Yuan checked the space of the treasure cave golden toad's bell. Lin Yuan found that the space inside each bell was 15 square meters. The area inside each bell was 15 square meters. It was 5 square meters bigger than the original brocade pouch. Now Lin Yuan could control the movable space. From the original 10 square meters, it had expanded by 4 times. It reached an area of 40 square meters. Such an area was already comparable to the initial area of the Spirit Lock spatial zone. Lin Yuan no longer had to be afraid of going back and forth between the Swamp World and the Divine Wood Federation. It would be inconvenient to bring people along. Moreover, to Lin Yuan, these 2 bells had additional benefits. That was the ability to separate space. For example, his master, the Moon Empress, didn't have to squeeze with that stinky turtle. The Moon Empress taught Lin Yuan this lesson with such seriousness. Lin Yuan didn't dare to be careless. Lin Yuan first went to his breeding room and closed the door. Then he entered the Spirit Lock spatial zone. Through the Klein hub he came to the swamp world. Lin Yuan released the Moon Empress. In the swamp world on Lin Yuan's territory, they were all separated into a thick layer of carpet by the swamp water moss. There was no longer the initial muddy and messy feeling. Medusa demons were born with a love for plants. When Lin Yuan came to the swamp world he brought a lot of flower seeds. These flower seeds were carefully planted on the swamp water moss by the Medusa demons. The swamp water moss was also happy to provide energy to these flower seeds. Around the Klein hub, there were long pavilions specially carved by spirit craftsmen. Flowers were everywhere like the imperial garden of a classical palace. The swamp world's area was huge. Lin Yuan could use it at will. Therefore the distance between each infrastructure was very far. It was for when some infrastructure wanted to be expanded in the future. You wouldn't have to worry about not having a place. At this moment, a few Medusa demons were reinforcing the side of the pavilion. There was a shelf made of completely jade-textured wood. On the shelf there were wall-climbing jadeite grapes. Jadeite grapes were the 100 Questions Beast's favorite fruit. They had the effect of nourishing spiritual energy. Lin Yuan specially cultivated a few bronze/legend jadeite grapes, and let genius nurture them to diamond. It could be said that a fruit was raised to such a level. It was a very extravagant behavior. A few crocodile-headed humanoid creatures were beside these Medusa demons. Each of them carried a bucket of water that could fit the Medusa snake demon. The Medusa demons were scooping water from the bucket. They were watering these jadeite grapes. These crocodile-headed humanoid creatures were all Zhou Xian, swamp crocodiles that were transformed through their talents. Recently they had been doing hard work in the territory and didn't know fatigue at all. The Moon Empress smelled the humid air filled with the fragrance of flowers. She looked at the blue full moon in the lavender sky. The Moon Empress could be sure that she had already arrived in the swamp world. The surroundings were built to be a thriving environment. It meant that her disciple Lin Yuan had already started to develop the swamp world a long time ago. Lin Yuan said softly to the Moon Empress. Lin Yuan said softly to the Moon Empress. Master, you should be able to absorb this blue moon in the sky, right? The Moon Empress nodded when she heard that. She said, 2 hours is enough to absorb this blue moon. It's just that the people of the Freedom Federation are bathing in this swamp world with this blue moon. If I absorb this blue moon they will definitely sense it. However, I have a good idea. Just take it as an insurance for you in the swamp world. At this point the Moon Empress paused for a moment. She then instructed. Holy cry, after this Empress absorbs the main body of this blue moon. You will condense the moon power of this blue moon and temporarily pretend to be the blue moon in the sky in the swamp world. Instant Beast Evolution Quotient. Please bookmark this site so that you can read it online the next time there is an update. Starting to update the mobile version of Do 5. There was a kind of fluorescent blue luster flickering in her tears. When Lin Yuan saw this moon-white wolf beast his eyes lit up. He knew that this wolf was the spirit of providence that had been following his master. Holy Weeping Moon Beast. Lin Yuan subconsciously used true data to investigate. After probing, Lin Yuan discovered something. Apart from its name, the Holy Weeping Moon Beast was also known as the Weeping Moon Beast. The rest of the attributes were all question marks. At that moment, Morbius' voice appeared in Lin Yuan's mind. Partner, this chosen spirit has just broken through the barrier of the eternal realm. I haven't reached the step of condensing a life providence. If you want to investigate this favored spirit's data, Yi Zichen said, I can consume a portion of my origin energy to conduct an investigation that transcends realms. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan hurriedly used his mental energy. He communicated with Morbius. There's no need to consume any origin energy. Once Morbius consumed too much of its origin energy it would fall asleep. Previously, Morbius had used up some origin energy to help Genius transform its bloodline. If it wasn't necessary, he did not want Morbius to lose any more of its source energy. Although Lin Yuan was the kind of person with a lot of curiosity, he didn't care. However, Lin Yuan's curiosity would never be based on the basis of not letting his partner get hurt. The Holy Weeping Moon Beast in the form of a giant moon-white wolf transformed. It turned into a tall, fair-skinned girl. She was wearing a moon-colored fur robe. The huge fur collar on the fur robe was as thick and lush as a wolf's hair. It made Holy Weeping's face look even more petite. Holy Weeping, who had transformed into a human form, bowed to the Moon Empress and said, "As the Moon Empress commands." After speaking, Holy Weeping looked up at Lin Yuan. It revealed a grateful smile at Lin Yuan. For Holy Weeping, Lin Yuan could definitely be called a benefactor. On one hand, Holy Weeping's strength could be improved this time. It all depended on the pure spirit qi that Lin Yuan had left for the Moon Empress. Without that pure spirit qi, it could not be relied on. Holy Weeping did not realize that it had the opportunity to reach this step. It could be said that Holy Weeping's creation. It was created by Lin Yuan and the Moon Empress together. On the other hand, Lin Yuan saved the Mother of Bloodbath. It allowed the Mother of Bloodbath to awaken the favored spirit's bloodline. When the Moon Empress saved the Mother of Bloodbath, not only did he not accept Lin Yuan as a disciple, but he also did not accept Lin Yuan as a disciple. In fact, he didn't even have the intention to accept a disciple. Naturally, he would not think of paving the way for his disciple. Back when the Moon Empress had saved the Mother of Bloodbath, Saint had cried and begged for mercy. Although Holy Weep was a talent. After leaving the blessed mansion, he wanted to find another opportunity. He followed the Moon Empress and treated her as his master. However, Xin Weep still had deep feelings for the heaven-blessed mansion. And in the entire heaven's blessed dojo, he was the most worthy of Holy Cry. It was the one who had carried him back to the heaven-blessed mansion. The elder sister who had taught him Yugui. For the past few days, Shuo Longlian and Bai Feng had been visiting him every day. They would look for Holy Weep to get together. Holy Cry learned about this from Blue Lotus. Lin Yuan had the ability to revive Jade Gui's soul. Back then, Saint Weep was the one who got the news. Bai Feng was so excited that she happily collected a jar of tears. Seeing the saint, he could not cry anymore. With Lin Yuan's help, Bai Feng was able to recover. He told Holy Weep about the possibility of Jade Gui's physical body recovering. As a result, Bai Feng collected 2 more jars of tears. Looking at Bai Feng, who was holding his 3 jars of tears with a smirk on her face, Holy Weep was so angry that he directly tore Bai Feng's fishing net clothes. Then he poured all 3 jars of tears into Bai Feng's mouth. Holy Weep knew very well that his tears contained light and life attribute energy. Bai Feng's body contained the power of night. Bai Feng's body contained the power of night. It was not compatible with his own energy. However, the life energy in the tears was of great benefit to Bai Feng. It was just that the light attribute energy would stimulate Bai Feng's stomach. The 3 jars of tears were poured into Bai Feng's stomach. The final result was that Bai Feng squatted in the toilet of the return from faraway manor every day. Her whole little face was pale. Yu Gui's death was equivalent to losing a trustworthy pillar in his life. At that time, Holy Weep was very sad. Now Holy Weep was very grateful to Lin Yuan. Holy Weep said softly to Lin Yuan, "Usually, I will transform into Blue Moon in the swamp world. If your highness wants to find me, just call out to the moon. Young lord, if you want to find me, just call out to the moon." Hearing this, Lin Yuan nodded at Holy Weep and said, "Auntie Holy Weep, then I'll have to trouble you." Chapter 1602. When Holy Sob heard how Lin Yuan addressed it, it was slightly startled. Although Holy Weep had lived for more than 1,000 years, it was still a powerful existence. But he had always been a child. Otherwise, he would not have done something like pouring his tears into Bai Feng's stomach. When Holy Weep met the Mother of Bloodbath, the Mother of Bloodbath's eyes widened. The Mother of Bloodbath only addressed him as Senior Holy Weep. Back then, Saint Weep didn't think much of it. He had lived to such an old age. How long had the Mother of Bloodbath lived? He was indeed the Mother of Bloodbath Senior. Holy Weep was a wolf because of it. He had always been firm and indifferent to his feelings. Saintly Weep's feelings were given to the Jade Gui. Therefore, even though Yu Gui was dead, this kind of feeling did not make Holy Cry pass on to Blood Beginning and the Mother of Bloodbath. Hence, Holy Cry didn't really acknowledge the Mother of Bloodbath. However, Lin Yuan could revive the Jade Gui. Holy Weep had acknowledged Lin Yuan. Under such circumstances, Lin Yuan called her Auntie Holy Cry. This made Saint Weep suddenly have a feeling in his heart. The feeling that he had grown up. Holy Sob knew very well that the Moon Empress wanted him to stay in the swamp world. What was he thinking in his heart? The Moon Empress wanted to protect Lin Yuan herself. Logically speaking, Saint Weep couldn't reject this favor. Holy Cry decided that as long as Lin Yuan stayed in the swamp world for a day, he would be able to survive. She only had her eyes on Lin Yuan for the entire day. No matter what, she had to ensure Lin Yuan's safety. The Moon Empress raised her eyes and measured the blue moon in the sky. He said to Lin Yuan, "Little Yuan, Master is going to swallow the moon. Just go and do whatever you want." "I'll need about 2 hours," Wang Chong said. The Moon Empress raised her hand. A staff formed from moonlight appeared in the Moon Empress' hand. The top of the staff was inlaid with 2 gems, one white and one red. Lin Yuan took a closer look and found these 2 gems. They were basically 2 miniature moons. Come to think of it, these 2 miniature moons. This was the moon of the main world and the moon of the abyss world that had been refined into a moon puppet. The moonlight-covered staff was clearly not the original appearance of the sacred source life form, moon nurturing. Rather, it was because the power of the moon contained within the moon feeding technique was simply too dense. The surface of his body was covered with a layer of moonlight. Given his current strength, he simply could not see through this layer of moonlight. Nurturing moon's original appearance. However, Lin Yuan could vaguely feel it. Moon feeding's body shouldn't be a walking stick. Instead, it was something bent into the shape of a cane. This was because he realized that the shape of this cane was very unique. There would be subtle changes at every moment. Immediately after, Lin Yuan saw his master, the Moon Empress. He threw the moon-feeding sword into the sky. The moonlight staff immediately turned into a strand of moonlight silk. It covered the blue moon in the sky above the swamp world. It made the blue moon even more hazy and translucent. Lin Yuan stared at blue moon. He could vaguely make out a winding figure within the blue moon. Was it a snake? In Lin Yuan's opinion, this figure looked like a ghost. The more he looked at it, the more it resembled a snake. Lin Yuan learned from Bai Yan how sacred source life forms were formed. A sacred source life form could feed on meteorological phenomena. This sacred source life form's grade was definitely higher than the other sacred source life forms that Lin Yuan knew of. They were all of a higher level. Lin Yuan's sacred source life form, the sacred sword-wielding queen. It was a fusion of 2 sacred source life forms. Therefore, he could not effectively classify the sacred sword-wielding queen. However, Lin Yuan felt that the Grace Queen's grade was lower than the moon-feeding sword. Previously, Lin Yuan had attributed the Grace Queen's grade to the moon-feeding sword. A sacred source life form formed from a totem that ruled over death. No matter what, the moon-feeding sword had to be a samsara realm ruler. Or rather, a dimensional life form above the ruler level had died. It had transformed into a sacred source life form. Such a sacred source life form could descend through a class 5-dimensional rift. It had been obtained by his master. It could definitely be considered his master's fortuitous encounter. At that moment, the Moon Empress' eyes were closed. Moonlight energy, spirit chi, and spiritual energy surged out of her body. It was as if she had fused with the blue moon in the sky. All of this was shielded by the sacred cry. Even the Medusa demons that were watering the jadeite grapes not far from Lin Yuan could not sense it. They could not sense it. Lin Yuan looked at the blue moon in the swamp world and the moonlight that surged out of the Moon Empress' body. They had completely fused together. A bright smile appeared on Lin Yuan's face. The pure spirit chi that he had given the Moon Empress could not be considered a gift in Lin Yuan's eyes. Now this blue moon in the swamp world. It could definitely be considered a very valuable gift. The Class 6-dimensional rift that the Mother Goddess Federation had opened was the Alien Insect Dimensional Rift. After Bu Pa became the Mother Goddess disciple. With Lin Yuan's operation, it was not impossible to enter the alien insect world. The Azure Federation's water world through Lin. There was also a good chance. In the 6-dimensional rifts, there was also a black moon in the underground world. However, for the underground world, this upside-down world, Lin Yuan had not grasped the method yet. No matter what, he had helped his master's sacred source life form, the moon-feeding sword, transform into a moonlight short staff. He had gathered all 6 moon gems. It had become one of Lin Yuan's goals. Lin Yuan knew how much the Moon Empress doted on him. Previously, Lin Yuan did not have the ability. Now that he had the ability, Lin Yuan naturally had to repay her. Or rather, he doted on his master. Radiant's royal capital, evening had arrived. Originally, it was dusk and the fiery clouds in the sky were breathtakingly beautiful. Those who lived in the royal capital would always see such fiery clouds. They were already used to it. However, before the sun had completely set, Yi Zichen's eyes lit up. The sky suddenly darkened. Black clouds pressed down on the city and the wind raged. A thunderstorm washed over the entire capital. At this moment, on the west side of the royal palace, in the guest hall of the Yaoguang garden, a middle-aged man in a blue robe was listening to the report of the old man next to him. He kept rubbing his temples with his fingers. After a while, the elegant blue-robed man raised his head. He asked the old man beside him suspiciously, "You're saying that our Azure Federation's fourth Azure envoy, Lady Lin? You are already acquainted with the Moon Empress disciple Lin Yuan, and you even have feelings for him." The old man nodded solemnly when he heard this. However, just as the old man nodded, he heard an angry shout. "Yi Chuan, do you think that I, Lan Sun, don't know how to curse? To put it mildly, you're making something out of nothing." In other words, he's trying to sow discord. You've ruined Lord Lin's reputation. If this gets out, don't say that Lord Lin won't let you off. The Azure Cloud Leopard clan and the entire Azure Federation will not tolerate you. The old man's eyes widened. Making something out of nothing? Sowing discord? I saw it with my own eyes. You didn't see the look in Lord Lin's eyes when he saw the Moon Empress disciple. What I saw was only what happened outside the carriage. Who knows what happened inside the carriage? Chapter 1603. The more the elder thought about it, the more wronged he felt. It was you, Lan Sun, who asked me to follow Lady Lin. How could I not tell you what happened? If word got out, Lady Lin would not let me off. The Azure Clouded Leopard clan and the entire Azure Federation would not tolerate me. What's wrong with me? I'm just telling you what I saw. The wronged elder looked at Lan Sun with a resentful look. But at the same time, the elder knew. Lan Sun had said all this to remind him. Don't say it out loud. The elder was not a fool. As a peak immortal realm expert, he was one step away from eternal realm. The old man was very clear about his responsibilities. In the next 10 years before the next Azure envoy was confirmed, he would always be Lady Lin's protector. For a girl, her reputation was the most important. If Lady Lin liked a prodigy from the Azure Federation, then so be it. The key was that Lady Lin liked the Moon Empress disciple. Regardless of whether Lan Sun believed it or not, the elder was certain. Lin must be interested in the Moon Empress disciple. Otherwise, she would not have looked at the Moon Empress disciple like that. He saw the elder looking at him with a resentful look. Lan Sun felt his fist itch. He waved his hand and said, "Elder Meng, you can go back. Lady Lin said she will be in seclusion for the next few days. You stay here and look after Lady Lin. As for the tour, I'll lead the little guys there." The elder pouted when he heard that Lan Sun wanted him to go back. The elder could only follow Lan Sun's instructions. After the elder left, Lan Sun's brows furrowed tightly. Lan Sun knew that Elder Meng's words were exaggerated. But it was definitely not something that came out of nowhere. Regarding Lin, he could not have said it blindly. It was very likely that what Elder Meng had said was the truth. Lan Sun was very clear about Lin's background. Lan Sun felt that it was impossible for Lin to have known Lin Yuan. But if that was the case, why was Lin so familiar with the Moon Empress disciple? Could it be that the sacred source life form that the Moon Empress disciple contracted had charming abilities? No. Lady Lin contracting 2 sacred source life forms was a secret of the Azure Federation. There was a second sacred source life form. Lin, who had 2 sacred source life forms, could not be controlled by her peers. The more Lan Sun thought about it, the more clueless he became. It wasn't good to ask Lin face to face. Lin and the Moon Empress disciple had a secret discussion. Elder Meng sensed along the way. No one from the Freedom Federation's diplomatic mission had inquired about all this. Presumably, the people from the Freedom Federation hadn't heard the news yet. If the Moon Empress disciple invited Lin to the Fey carriage, what could they talk about? It must be related to the Radiance 100 sequence selection that would take place in a few days. Originally, when Lan Sun saw that Lin had refused to cooperate with the Freedom Federation's diplomatic mission, he thought that Lin didn't want to get involved in this mess. But from the looks of it, Lin's intentions might not be as simple as that. Was it possible that Lady Lin from the very beginning? Are they already leaning toward the Radiance Federation? The Azure Federation had always been neutral. He had cooperated with the Radiance Federation and the Freedom Federation. But when the Radiance Federation and the Freedom Federation truly wrestled with each other, It was impossible for the Azure Federation to remain unscathed. The Radiance Federation and the Freedom Federation would force the Azure Federation to make a choice. Who should he lean towards? Between the 12 great Azure families, they hadn't been able to come up with a consensus. The purpose of this trip to the Radiance Federation was to announce Lady Lin becoming the 4th Azure envoy to the world. The number one figure in the entire Azure Federation's diplomatic mission was Lin, the Azure envoy. As Lin's teacher, he was just accompanying her. Therefore, no matter what Lin thought or what decision she made, she could represent the will of the entire Azure Federation's diplomatic mission. Lan Xun didn't intend to consider too much. Anyway, he just had to ensure Lady Lin's safety. Lan Xun was very confident about this. After the Freedom Federation's diplomatic mission arrived at the Radiance Federation, they didn't stay in the Radiance Federation's Feather Light Palace that was specially arranged for the Freedom Federation's diplomatic mission. Instead, they stayed in a newly purchased courtyard on the Gushing Rock Mountain. It could be said that the Freedom Federation's start. It was obvious that they didn't trust the Radiance Federation. The Freedom Federation's diplomatic mission might have come to the Radiance Federation with a special purpose. However, they were also very afraid that the Radiance Federation would do something to the Feather Light Palace. At that moment, in the Gushing Rock Mountain's courtyard, they held up a powerful position. This position firmly enveloped the entire Gushing Rock Mountain. At that moment, inside the Freedom Federation's diplomatic mission, there was also a meeting going on. Holding up this barrier would make the contents of the meeting clear. The Freedom Federation's diplomatic mission definitely didn't want outsiders to know. Qianyu was the Freedom Envoy of the Freedom Federation's diplomatic mission on the surface. He sat on the main seat in the courtyard. 3 elders stood beside him. Yanling, Yu Changjian and Kai Hua sat below Qianyu respectively. The rest of the independent 100-sequence geniuses stood in place with their heads lowered. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly. This was the Freedom Federation's internal meeting. These independent 100-sequence members didn't even have the qualifications to speak. Yanling looked at her fingers and said, "Big Brother Qian, I think you're making a mountain out of a molehill. How strong can the new Radiance 100-sequence members on the Radiance Federation's side be? How strong can the new Radiance 100-sequence members on the Radiance side be? Longsword and Aho don't even need to fight." After hearing Yanling's words, Qianyu's face suddenly darkened. Qianyu's face sank when he heard Yanling's words. "Yanling, if you continue to be so arrogant. After we return, I will report this matter truthfully to Her Holiness. After we return, I will report this matter truthfully to Her Holiness. This time the 3 of you know why we're here. If it's just to kill the 10 new Radiance 100-sequence members, any one of you can make a move. Apart from the 3 of you, Yu Hairun might be a better choice. The 3 of you will make a move together. It's because your sacred source lifeforms can cooperate with each other. If your arrogance spoils this time's goal and affects Her Holiness' subsequent plans against the current Radiance envoys, after you return to the Freedom Federation, you will have to bear the consequences yourself." After hearing Qianyu's words, Yanling's face turned cold. He still felt that she was strong enough. However, she didn't dare to show it anymore. Compared to Yu Changjian and Kai Hua, Yanling had always been arrogant. This was because Yanling was favored by the 3 Holiness in the Freedom Federation. As for Kai Hua and Yu Changjian, there were only 2 of them. However, Yanling couldn't be truly worry-free. If she really messed things up in the Radiance Federation this time, after Qianyu returned, he would report this matter to Her Holiness in the Freedom Temple. Chapter 1604. He was 100% sure that he would be questioned by the Majesties. There was even a possibility of punishment. In the Freedom Federation, he wanted to become a Freedom Envoy. This was a very difficult thing to do. Yanling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian were confident. It came from the 3 sacred source lifeforms' ability to complement each other. The 3 of them together were definitely more valuable than the other 3 alone. Every Majesty of the Freedom Federation would never only care for a single member of the younger generation. For example, Du Miao, who favored the younger generation the most, favored a total of 6 people. Yanling knew that she was very important. But he didn't feel like he couldn't be replaced. Yanling admitted defeat. "Big Brother Qian, I looked down on the younger generation of Radiance. This time, Big Brother Qian is the leader of the envoy group. If there's anything, the 3 of us will listen to Big Brother Qian. Yu Changjin and Kai Huo were displeased by Yanling's words. Along the way, Qian Yu had always wanted to grasp the absolute right to speak. But in fact, the three of them were His Majesty's caretakers. At the same time, he had quite a bit of authority. In some matters, if their wishes were right, they would not be able to do so. Even if this matter was against Qian Yu's opinion. Qian Yu also needed to make a corresponding compromise. But now, because of Qian Yu's words, Yanling actually became angry. He directly spoke up, giving the authority of the three of them to Qian Yu. This time he would be able to kill as many of Hui Yao's disciples as possible. The more Radiance envoys were weakened, the more comprehensive strength the next Radiance envoy would have. The more contributions they made, the greater the contribution. Qian Yu was an extremely selfish person who placed his own interests above everything else. In this duel, they were going to hunt down the younger generation of Hui Yao. However, if Hui Yao's younger generation was stronger than him, in that case he and the others would also become prey. Therefore he had the right to speak in this aspect. He had to stay on his side. Kai Hu spoke first. Big Brother Qian, I heard that among the younger generation of the Radiant sect, there is a person called Black who is extremely powerful. On our way here, we saw a lot of people imitating Black on the street. Although we haven't gotten any information yet, it's hard to believe that a person can be praised to such an extent. Black is definitely at the peak of the younger generation. I suggest that Black be treated as an opponent on the same level as His Majesty's disciple. Black has always been wearing a mask. It's highly possible that he really is a disciple of His Holiness. That's why I suggest that we only drag one of Her Holiness's disciples into the water during the duel. In this battle, we will eliminate Black and one of His Holiness's disciples, as well as the 9 members of the Federation of Radiance's 100 sequence. We have completed His Majesty's mission. When Yu Changjian saw Kai Hu, he said what he wanted to say. He didn't say anything more. If Qian Yu had a different opinion later, then he stood up for Kai Hu. It was much better than agreeing with them now. When Qian Yu heard Kai Hu's words, he felt that Yanling, Yu Changjian and Kai Hu were a team. It was quite interesting. Yanling was arrogant, Kai Hu was conservative, and Changjian liked to retreat. As long as his teammates could stand up for him, he would never stand up for himself. The three of them were a flawed team. But they could complement each other perfectly. Qian Yu did not intend to do as Kai Hu said. Black was regarded as a disciple of His Holiness Hui Yao, but the Holiness in the Temple of Liberty would not agree. Wouldn't this be a wasted trip? He would also be laughed at by the other 4 messengers. Therefore Qian Yu decided. He had to do something big. However, Qian Yu wasn't in a hurry to reveal his plans. Instead he changed the topic and said, I just received news today that His Holiness Cicada Cry of Hui Yao has accepted a new disciple. This disciple is a support class spirit chi professional called Gao Feng. I will participate in the Radiance 100 sequence selection. Qian Yu paused for a moment before continuing. Cicada Cry's disciple Gao Feng is a pure support. I think we can consider him and Black as one of Her Holiness's disciples. Yanling, what do you think? Qian Yu knew the arrogant Yanling at this moment. He would definitely agree with his point of view. Sure enough, Yanling heard Qian Yu's words. He said directly, if there aren't 2 or more main attackers, pure support is completely useless. Treating Gao Feng and Black as disciples of His Majesty is already overestimating them. Hearing Yanling's words, Qian Yu looked at Kai Hu. Kai Hu's expression darkened. It just so happened that Kai Hu was a pure support spirit chi professional. It was the same as Gao Feng's. At this moment Yu Changjian could not hold it in anymore and said, if that's the case, then we'll plan to call for the next disciple. Won't we have to face 2 disciples of His Majesty and an unknown Black at the same time? Qian Yu shook his head and replied, not 2 but 4. Hearing Qian Yu's words, even the arrogant Yanling's expression darkened. There were only 3 of them and they had to fight 4 disciples of Her Majesty. There were only 3 of them, yet they were going to fight Hui Yao's 4 disciples. Just as the 3 of them were about to oppose, they heard Qian Yu say, you said that I'm 28 years old this year, the youngest among the previous freedom envoys. Using me to fight in exchange for 3 disciples of Her Majesty, do you think the Radiant sect will agree? Hearing Qian Yu's words, Yanling, Yu Changjian and Kai Hu were suddenly enlightened. Upon hearing Qian Yu's words, Yanling, Yu Changjian and Kai Hu were enlightened. The 3 of them were hidden among the independent 100 sequence members. The Radiance sect could not possibly know their identities. The Radiance 100 sequence already had a disciple of Her Majesty. There was already one disciple of Her Majesty in the Radiance 100 sequence. Then the three of them would fight Qianyu. For the sake of their reputation, it was impossible for the Radiance 100 sequence to disagree. Qianyu's current age was still within the range of the Radiance 100 sequence. By then, there would be 4 disciples of Her Majesty in Black, who was famous in the Radiance 100 sequence. If the 5 of them were to be killed, the Radiance sect's younger generation would suffer a heavy blow. After returning, the 3 of them would be recognized as the next freedom envoys. It was basically a done deal. Furthermore, Qianyu would personally fight. It was impossible for him not to find a way out for himself. Qianyu was the youngest freedom envoy in the Freedom Federation. He would definitely cherish his life. At the thought of this, Yan Ling, Yu Changjian and Kai Hua nodded. Let's do as Big Brother Qianyu says. Yu Changjian thought for a moment and said, Big Brother Qianyu, let's do it. Big Brother Qian, if you are rejected by the Radiance sect, my bottom line is still to call for another disciple of Her Majesty. I think I won't fight more than this number. I'm sure Her Majesty, who cares for me, will be able to understand. Qianyu did not say anything. On the other hand, the 3 elders beside Qianyu only felt mentally exhausted. Qianyu had pulled the 3 of them and made such a big deal. All the pressure before returning to the Freedom Federation would probably be on the 3 of them. No way. They had to report to the Temple of Liberty. They had to let a Lord Her Majesty come to the Radiance sect to be safe. Instant update of Beast Evolution Quotient. Please bookmark this site so that you can read it online the next time there's an update. Starting to update the mobile version of Do 5. Chapter 1605. In the swamp world, it had always been daytime. The sky would never be completely dark. Actually, it wasn't accurate to say it that way. According to his observations, the swamp world also had day and night. It was daytime in the swamp world and the sky was green. At night, the sky will turn light purple. The sun and the moon hung in the sky at the same time. However, compared to the daytime, the cyan moon in the swamp world, in the light purple sky, it would be more conspicuous. The creatures in the swamp world did not sense it at all. At this moment, the moon empress in the sky had already disappeared. What replaced it was the original energy of the moon. The holy weeping moon beast had already transformed into a moon and was gathering the azure moon energy within the swamp world to conceal itself. He was prepared to firmly guard Lin Yuan in the swamp world. The pale blue moon seemed a little brighter than usual. Moonlight sprinkled down, and the wisps of moonlight intertwined with each other. In the moon empress hand, a moonlight short staff was formed. Originally, there were only 2 round moon gems on the short staff, one white and one red. Now there was another cyan full moon gem. This green, round moon gem was proof of the moon empress' sacred source life form, Feed the Moon. He had mastered another moon ho. At that moment, the moon empress opened her eyes. He smiled faintly at Lin Yuan. Little Yuan, Master thanks you for giving Master this fortuitous encounter. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan quickly replied. Master, you don't have to thank me. Master has saved my life many times. If you really want to say thank you, Master, and I will never be able to finish it. The moon empress wasn't the kind of person who would easily thank others. He had never said a word of thanks in his entire life. To Lin Yuan, it was because he had really changed the moon empress too much. Having an infinite lifespan was just 1 point. With pure spiritual chi, crossing that step was just 1 point. Getting the 3rd moon avatar was still 1 point. The moon empress asked herself about these 3 points. It was impossible for him to obtain it by himself. However, Lin Yuan was right. Saying thanks to his own disciple was really treating him like an outsider. At that moment, the moon empress heard Lin Yuan's voice. Master, the density of the spiritual chi I prepared has increased again. Apart from that, I can also produce elemental energy that is purer than heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls. I've already collected more than 1,000 soul forest peonies. Now is the time. I'll give these over 1,000 spirit-containing peonies to my master. As he spoke, he handed a diamond fey storage box to the moon empress. The moon empress took the diamond fey storage box from Lin Yuan. She suddenly felt that she was with Lin Yuan. Why did it seem as though Lin Yuan had become his master? Where did Lin Yuan get so many good things? It could produce purer elemental energy than heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls. He could already use this ability. It was to define the standard of a Class 6 creation master. In the end, the Moon Empress didn't stand on ceremony. This was because the pure spirit chi could indeed allow the Moon Empress to do many things. Xianyu had already reached that level. As long as there was pure spirit chi, Songyue would be able to do it. He had taken that final step. During this time, the Moon Empress had learned about Chu Xi's talent from Cold Moon. It could be said that Chu Xi's talent had surprised the Moon Empress. Many of them had become B-rank spirit chi professionals at the age of 16. Although the speed of breaking through to spirit chi professionals was faster than ordinary spirit chi professionals, it could not be considered a standard to measure strength. This was because ordinary spirit chi professionals had limited resources. The strength of phase would never reach the limit of their spirit chi professional rank. However, Chu Xi was completely different. Chu Xi was in a situation where she had a massive amount of resources. As long as the spirit chi professional's rank increased, the strength of the phase would immediately increase. Cold Moon performed the rolling tier on Chu Xi. It could be said that Chu Xi's current strength. She was already not inferior to most of the 100 sequence members. In another year, Chu Xi would come to the royal capital to study at the Advanced Spirit Chi University. She would then be able to participate in the Radiance 100 sequence selection. Originally, Chu Xi had wanted to jump the queue and register for the Radiance 100 sequence selection. She would become a 100 sequence member with Lin Yuan. However, Song Yu had directly rejected him. Cold Moon did not want Chu Xi to be at such a young age. She would be involved in the dispute between the Radiance Federation and the Freedom Federation. Lin Yuan would be involved in this matter alone. Cold Moon was already worried. She really couldn't bear to let Chu Xi get involved again. On the other hand, Song Yu felt that if Chu Xi really participated in the Radiance 100 sequence selection, she would not be able to do so. He really couldn't explain to Lin Yuan. According to Song Yu's prediction, no matter how slow Chu Xi was, she wouldn't be able to catch up. 5 years before the age of 21. He could also become an A-rank spirit chi professional. At that time she would be able to possess a myth-breed fae. Song Yu had never had any expectations for Chu Xi. But now, Song Yu felt that Chu Xi might have the ability to do so in 2 years. To participate in the selection of the Radiance Envoy. At the very least he could become a member of the Radiant Light Knights. However, after thinking about it, Song Yu finally decided not to let Chu Xi go 2 years later. To get involved in this muddy water. 10 years later, Chu Xi was 26 years old. At that time, it would not be too late to run for the Radiance Envoy position. Directly becoming a Radiance Envoy was much better than becoming a member of the Radiance Light Knights. She could dedicate her entire life to the Moon Empress and Hui Yao. However, Song Yu only hoped that Chu Xi could live a worry-free life. The Moon Empress took the diamond phase storage box that Lin Yuan handed over and said, "That's right. Little Yuan, let's go back." At this time, Song Yu and Little Ci should have already returned to the Radiant Moon Palace. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan took out the treasured artifact made of the treasure cave golden toad's skin and stomach sac. He stored the Moon Empress in it. Then he returned to the Spirit Lock spatial zone through the Klein Hub. Finally, he stepped out of the Spirit Lock spatial zone and returned to the breeding room. In the breeding room, Lin Yuan immediately released his master, the Moon Empress. She watched as he returned to the Radiant Moon Palace in a moment. The Moon Empress was increasingly curious about Lin Yuan's methods. However, curiosity was just curiosity. Not only would the Moon Empress not investigate Lin Yuan's methods. Instead, she could help Lin Yuan keep his secrets. Just as he pushed open the breeding room's door, Lin Yuan saw Chu Xi standing at the door, obviously waiting for him to come out. The moment she saw Lin Yuan, Chu Xi's face revealed a pure smile. She opened her arms. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan quickly stepped forward and hugged Chu Xi. Then he carried Chu Xi and gently spun her around. Lin Yuan realized that Chu Xi had grown a lot taller. Previously, Chu Xi's height only reached his shoulder. Now it was up to his face. At the same time, Chu Xi seemed to have become a little lighter. Lin Yuan immediately frowned and asked Chu Xi, "Chu Xi, have you developed the habit of being picky recently? Since you were young, I've told you to eat a little of everything. Don't be picky. Since you were young, I've told you to eat a little of everything. Don't be picky." Chapter 1606. Chu Xi pouted when she heard that. She thought to herself, I'm not a picky eater. I was just immature when I was young. Whenever I saw food I would want to eat more. I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to eat it anymore. Zhou Xian had learned to control her eating. The Moon Empress looked at Lin Yuan with her mouth agape. Lin Yuan was a smart person, but why was he so straight sometimes? Girls grew up and understood beauty and ugliness. Naturally she would control her weight. However, Zhou Xian did look a little thinner than she had before. The Moon Empress reached out and stroked the hair on Zhou Xi's head. I'm going to help Cold Moon and Mystic Moon prepare dinner. You two siblings must have a lot of secrets to tell each other. The Moon Empress turned around and left the breeding room. Previously, the Moon Empress only had 3 years left in her lifespan. Mystic Moon learned about it from the cicada. If not for the cicada, Mystic Moon would not have known about it. Mystic Moon would not have known about it. Mystic Moon did not want to tell Cold Moon about it. However, as one of the Moon envoys, Cold Moon should know about it. Fortunately, the Moon Empress was out of danger and was on the right track. Mystic Moon said to Cold Moon solemnly, Cold Moon, when you called me last month, you asked me why I was in low spirits for a period of time. I didn't tell you then. I'll tell you why now. 10 years ago, the Moon Empress injured her foundation during a battle. She only has 3 years left in her lifespan. Cold Moon was processing the golden silk blood jujubes. She was preparing some jujubes for Zhou Xian to drink at night. Upon hearing that, Cold Moon's eyes turned blood red. It was as if layers of blood scabs had congealed in her eyes. Mystic Moon hurriedly said. Fortunately, the young lord helped the Moon Empress find a way out. Now the Moon Empress is fine. It was a blessing in disguise and her strength has increased. Upon hearing that, Cold Moon's eyes turned blood red. It did not subside. Cold Moon picked up the jujubes and threw it at Mystic Moon. Can you stop gasping for air when talking about this kind of thing? Can't you tell me the result first? Seeing this, Xianyu immediately dodged backward. He thought to himself. When he was speaking he did pause for a while. But that was because he had seen Songyu's eyes turn red. I was worried about Songyu's condition, so I didn't have time to tell her. Little White Rabbit witnessed everything from the side. He chewed on the carrot leisurely as he thought to himself. Given Songyu's feelings for the Moon Empress, the worry in her heart would not be vented on Xianyu. This matter was definitely not over. Coincidentally, the Moon Empress walked over. When Songyu saw the moon, she pushed it away. He came to the Moon Empress' side and asked, Moon Empress, you? When the Moon Empress saw Cold Moon's expression, she knew it was Mystic Moon. He told Songyu about it. The Moon Empress did not intend to hide this matter from Songyu. The Moon Empress knew that Songyu wouldn't want her to hide anything. Xianyu obviously knew about it, but he didn't know anything at all. However, the Moon Empress had originally planned to do it tonight. He invited Songyu to look at the night sky and then he would personally tell Songyu. The Moon Empress shook her head as she looked at the worried Cold Moon. I'm fine now. Cold Moon, I'm going to attend the Imperial Court Council in the next 2 days. I'll let Mystic Moon help you break through. After hearing the Moon Empress' words, Cold Moon was worried and surprised. Moon Empress, I want to break through. Spirit Chi. Before Cold Moon could finish, Mystic Moon had already spoken. My strength has broken through. If I want to break through, I definitely need more pure spirit chi than those fays of yours. Hearing this, Songyu suddenly remembered. When she sparred with Mystic Moon previously, Mystic Moon could easily dodge the jade pestle in her hand every time. Cold Moon immediately asked the Moon Empress in surprise. Moon Empress, your creation master strength has improved again. The Moon Empress pondered for a moment and did not deny it. In the Moon Empress' opinion, this pure spirit chi was also a trump card for Lin Yuan. Such a matter could not be left unattended. It was better for one less person to know. The Moon Empress personally started to prepare dinner. Cold Moon and Mystic Moon helped at the side. He watched helplessly as the Moon Empress stewed the creation breed phase dragon tendon in the stew pot. Lin Yuan had been chatting with Zhou Xian for a while. He heard Zhou Xian happily say that her strength had increased to that of a B-rank spirit chi professional. Lin Yuan did not dare to believe his ears. He was only a B-rank spirit chi professional now. Zhou Xian, who was 2 years younger than him, had actually caught up to him. At that moment, Zhou Xian continued to speak. Lin Yuan, Master has upgraded both of my fantasy breed phase to Diamond X. The Burning Sunflower twins, Master told me not to raise their grades first. After comprehending the willpower rune and letting the burning sunflower twins become fantasy breeds, I will raise their grades. It's just that I have not comprehended a suitable willpower rune for the burning sunflower twins. At this point, Chu Xi's face did not show any signs of frustration. She was very clear about her progress during this period. After all, she knew very well how much she had improved during this period of time. She waved her hand and a white crystal-like willpower rune appeared. With a wave of her hand, a white crystal-like willpower rune appeared. It shot out from Chu Xi's spiritual spatial zone. It revolved around Chu Xi's fingers. Lin Yuan did not expect Chu Xi to comprehend another willpower rune. Lin Yuan immediately sensed the willpower rune in Chu Xi's palm. Chapter 1607. The obsidian iron wild bull and the yellow jadeite golden butterfly could be said to be the phase that Lin Yuan had created. When the obsidian iron wild bull was still a sharp rock bull. Due to the sudden opening of the alien insect dimensional rift, he was severely injured. At the time, Yang Mingkai had been helpless against the heavily injured obsidian iron wild bull. He had almost treated the obsidian iron wild bull as a meat cow. It was Lin Yuan who had discovered the obsidian iron wild bull's elite skill, sacrifice, and saved it. It also gave her a chance to change her fate. Otherwise, Lin Yuan, who had just discovered his body's peculiarity, would not have been able to do so. He wanted to raise a large sum of money in a short time. It was truly difficult to buy a high-quality bronze fei for Chu Xi. He had also obtained the yellow jadeite golden butterfly from Wuxia. He had gotten it when he traded for the cocoons. At that time, Wuxia was disheartened by the insect queen's death. He had lost the opportunity to become a spirit chi professional. He wore a mask and concealed his identity. Occasionally, he would rely on the insect queen's ability to go up the mountain to collect some spiritual materials. In addition to providing for himself, he also provided for many homeless children. For the education of these children, he had obtained the yellow jadeite golden butterfly from Wuxia. And it was just a dust butterfly in a cocoon. It evolved from a dust butterfly to a Vajra butterfly. Then it was induced by the pollen of the golden peony and pure spiritual energy. This caused the evolution path of the jade butterfly to mutate. As it turned out, the yellow jadeite golden butterfly was of the gold attribute. It was more suitable for Chu Xi than the wood attribute jadeite butterfly. The metal elemental yellow jadeite golden butterfly had a stronger defense than the wood elemental jadeite butterfly. Also more aggressive. However, it did not mean that there were no drawbacks at all. Compared with the jadeite jade butterfly, the yellow jadeite golden butterfly had a disadvantage. Was it like the jadeite butterfly, which had a certain supporting effect? According to what Chu Xi had just said, the yellow jadeite golden butterfly had already evolved to the diamond rank. If that was the case, it must be the bloodline of the yellow jadeite golden butterfly. It should have evolved. He didn't know that the yellow jadeite golden butterfly was in the process of evolving into the tourmaline emperor butterfly. Could the yellow jadeite golden butterfly retain the golden petal peony pollen to bring about the mutation? Under Tsang Yu's tutelage, Chu Xi learned a lot. He was getting more and more aware of how important privacy was to a spirit chi professional. If his phase information was leaked, the opponent just happened to counter the phase characteristics, even if the enemy's overall strength was inferior to his own. It was also very likely that the boat would capsize in the gutter. If someone else wanted to see Chu Xi's fei, they wouldn't be able to do so. Chu Xi would never casually summon a fei. However, she was not the slightest bit wary of Lin Yuan. She was known as the Radiance's youngest genius on the star web. However, she knew that all this glory had been brought to her by Lin Yuan. Chu Xi would never forget it. Back then he had been so dizzy that he couldn't even stand up. He still brought his own livelihood with him. In the beginning, when the two of them depended on each other, the family was so poor that they only had a bowl of porridge left. Lin Yuan left this bowl of porridge for himself. In the middle of the night, he would secretly nibble on the usnea vine's leaves like a herbivorous fei. The usnea was not as mild as the army ration radish. Even ordinary people could eat it. Usnea leaves were very stimulating to the stomach. When spirit chi professionals ate it, their stomachs would be in unbearable pain. It was unlike herbivorous feis that had a strong resistance to usnea leaves. Therefore, no matter what happened, he would always be her most important person. Chu Xi immediately waved her hand and summoned her two feis. Immediately, Lin Yuan saw a sturdy bull with a body length of 5 meters and a height of 2.5 meters. It appeared next to Zhou Xian. The bull's entire body had a mirror-like silver sheen. Through this layer of skin one could see the bull's body. Explosive streamlined muscles. Lin Yuan had seen so many fays. Even a tiger species fay could not compare to this bull species fay in terms of strength and beauty. The bull tail, which was nearly 1 meter long, gently swung behind it. The swinging bull tail dragged a series of sonic booms in the air. At that moment Lin Yuan saw Zhou Xian stand on her tiptoes. She reached out to touch the huge bull's cheek and said, "Little iron lump. I know you're happy to see Lin Yuan. But how many times have I told you not to always swing your tail when you're happy? Don't learn from those stinky hippos. If I didn't know better I would think you're farting." Upon hearing that, the obsidian iron wild bull mooed twice. It seemed to be responding to Zhou Xian. Then it obediently put down its tail. The bull looked at Lin Yuan full of joy. Lin Yuan pursed his lips when he heard Zhou Xian address the obsidian iron wild bull. "This is a little iron lump? This is simply a bull-shaped dump truck." The obsidian iron wild bull had turned silver. It was obvious that its bloodline had evolved. It should be called Little Silver Nugget. For the obsidian iron wild bull, the changes to its skin were among the other changes. It could barely be considered third. The obsidian iron wild bull's silver bull body was inlaid with clusters of black gems. Under the illumination of the light, the black gems emitted a multicolored light. Chapter 1608. Fey name: Mirror Silver Obsidian Bull, Spirit Species, Horn Species/Bull Species, Fey Grade. Diamond 5 out of 10. Fey Type: Metal, Fey Quality. Fantasy AI Skills: Frowny Face Thorn Horn. Attach metal to a rhinoceros horn and use it to charge forward without regard for injuries. Sacrifice: when the contestant is injured, help the contestant take the initiative to share the damage. If the contestant is injured, the contestant will feed back his own life force to the contestant. Pain Buffer: when receiving elemental damage, the surface of the body will form a shield that isolates elemental damage. It will buffer the elemental energy on the surface of the body for a period of time. The damage will only be received after the shield is broken. Mirror Skin: the body forms a silver mirror-like skin. When receiving elemental attacks, the mirror-like skin can reflect elemental energy, reflecting a portion of the elemental attack back to the opponent, causing damage to the opponent. Horn of Fury: combines the energy extracted from metal with sunlight, using sunlight to activate the metal's energy. When dealing damage to the opponent, the metal's energy will spread into the target's body and condense within the target's body. Taste of Pain: every time you are attacked you will taste pain, causing the pain to multiply. The pain will temporarily temper your willpower and temporarily increase your mental strength. Exclusive Skill: Frowny Face Pain Absorption: when receiving damage, absorb a portion of the damage and convert it into HP. Gaze of Annihilation: the Mirror Silver Obsidian Bull's prideful battle sense and battle fervor drives its instinctive footsteps. The Mirror Silver Obsidian Bull instantly converts all damage it receives into a mental attack to attack its opponent. After probing, Lin Yuan discovered something. The Obsidian Iron Wild Bull's Fey name had changed to Mirror Silver Obsidian Bull. It was also a metal type Fey. The Fey's grade had become Diamond V/Fantasy 3. At Zhou Xi's age, this level of strength was unfathomable. Kibbe said that this was unprecedented among the entire younger generation of the Radiance sect. Apart from the true top young powerhouses like Zhongzhe and Enhe, Zhou Xi no longer lacked anything in terms of phase. After all, if Lin Yuan wanted to find some resources, he would be able to do so. It could easily upgrade the Mirror Silver Obsidian Bull from Diamond V to Fantasy 3. It transformed into a Diamond X/Fantasy V. However, even if Zhou Xi's Mirror Silver Obsidian Bull was upgraded to Diamond X/Fantasy V, he still couldn't be compared to Zhongzhe, Anhe and the others. Firstly, Zhou Xi did not have a desolate bloodline Fey. Secondly, Zhou Xi was still young and did not have a sacred source item. Merging with a sacred source life form too early could harm the soul. The soul is the weight of a person. No one who treated Zhou Xi well would be willing to let her take on such a risk. In terms of skills, the Mirror Silver Obsidian Bull had the common skill Thorn Horn and the elite skill Sacrifice. There were no changes to the silver skill Pain Buffer. It was no wonder. After all, the obsidian iron wild bull was different from Chimey. Chimey and Genius weren't even phased previously. He was constantly digging out the potential of his bloodline. That was why they kept evolving. The mirror silver obsidian bull was a Fey with a fixed bloodline. He had evolved from the sharp rock bull, sharp iron horn bull, and obsidian iron wild bull. It couldn't do without Lin Yuan's pure spirit qi. In fact, he wanted to help Zhou Xian enhance her phase. Using pure spirit qi to increase the phase strength. It would often promote the bloodline and produce more evolution possibilities. However, it did not matter if Zhou Xi's phase were upgraded by cold moon. After that, Zhou Xi's phase would be nourished by pure spirit qi. It would have the same effect. Lin Yuan planned to wait until Zhou Xi became an A-rank spirit qi professional. Then he would nourish the mirror silver obsidian bull. He would strive to let the mirror silver obsidian bull become a myth breed. Its bloodline could be improved again. As for the mirror silver obsidian bull's gold skills, they were all obtained by Zhou Xi after she went out to train. Lin Yuan had never seen them before. The gold skill mirror skin was probably because Cold Moon had fed the obsidian iron wild bull mirror silver. This rare platinum spiritual material had caused the obsidian iron wild bull's bloodline to transform. Thus it had obtained this skill. The mirror skin skill perfectly made up for the mirror silver obsidian bull's pain buffer. It was equivalent to increasing the durability of the pain buffer. It also greatly increased the mirror silver obsidian bull's elemental resistance. Coupled with the exclusive skill pain absorption, it allowed the mirror silver obsidian bull to obtain a recovery effect while improving its overall ability. It would undoubtedly make it more difficult for the opponent to get rid of the mirror silver obsidian bull in battle. At the same time, the mirror silver obsidian bull could also return the opponent's elemental damage to the opponent. In a way, even if the mirror silver obsidian bull escaped from the yellow jadeite golden butterfly's exclusive skill, shield explosion, it could still counterattack. It could still reflect the damage. It had become a gasoline barrel in the truest sense. If you dare to light a fire, I'll burn it. Then everyone would be burned to death. The mirror silver obsidian bull was an iron lump that devoured metal spiritual materials and was very resistant to physical attacks. Now it had increased its elemental resistance. It would be very difficult for the mirror silver obsidian bull to feel pain when it was attacked by the same Fey. The platinum skill, Obsidian Rage Horn, gave the mirror silver obsidian bull an additional attack method. When blocking, there is a certain chance that the blocked force will be reflected back. Golden Seal Shield. Quickly attach to the target and condense a yellow jade omnidirectional shield that can follow the target's movements. Atomized Butterfly Powder. Flap the wings and scatter the butterfly powder on the butterfly wings. The butterfly powder can protect the target and isolate natural elements. At the same time, it can replenish the metal energy for the metal-type Fey. Butterfly's Illusion. Possesses a target of the same element as the user. If the target is an ally, the user can transfer metal energy to the target, giving the target the ability to fly and a temporary shield. If the target is an enemy, the corresponding metal energy in the target's body will be locked, and the target will be vulnerable. Butterfly Wing Sacrifice. Uses a part of the butterfly wings to increase the temporary toughness of shield-type abilities. The longer the toughness is increased, the more the consumption of the butterfly wings. Golden Seal Revival Shield. Casts a sturdy shield over the target. As the shield is continuously attacked, the shield's effects will weaken. When the life form protected by the shield loses its life force, the shield will absorb this lost life force to recharge. Exclusive skill Frowny Face Counterattack Tremor. When attacked, a portion of the damage will be reflected back in the form of an energy tremor, regardless of whether it is a physical attack or a magical attack. Shield Explosion Counterattack. Shatter all the shields on the target's body. At the same time, the shield will condense the greatest attack that it can withstand into a single strike, causing huge damage. Lin Yuan realized that the yellow jadeite golden butterfly's name had become the Golden Seal Emperor Butterfly. It had become the Golden Seal Emperor Butterfly. The Golden Emperor Butterfly was an extremely noble existence among the butterfly species phase. If it could take another step forward, it could reach the height of the Nirvana Butterfly and Slaughter Sky Butterfly bloodlines. Right now, the Golden Seal Emperor Butterfly's Fey type had not changed. It was still Metal type. The phase grade had evolved from its original grade to the current Diamond Eye/Fantasy 3. The Golden Seal Emperor Butterfly's normal ability, Wing Block, and elite ability, Golden Seal Shield, had not changed. The silver ability, Atomized Butterfly Powder. When the Golden Seal Emperor Butterfly flapped its butterfly wings, the scale powder turned into a golden rose rain. It had the effect of group defense and support. The defense was useful against all phases of the same element. It could isolate natural elements. On the battlefield, this ability was equivalent to weakening the strength of phase that relied on elements to fight. It was also effective against friendly units. However, apart from the target protected by the atomized butterfly powder. Apart from being affected, Zhou Xian could freely control the coverage of the atomized butterfly powder. The atomized butterfly powder's support ability was to charge other metal-type phase. The mirror silver obsidian bull was a metal-type phase. Under the effect of the Golden Seal Emperor Butterfly's silver ability, atomized butterfly powder. Not only did it increase his defense, but it was also equivalent to carrying a portable power bank. No wonder Zhou Xian said that the little gold nugget could help the little iron nugget increase its stamina. The Golden Seal Emperor Butterfly's gold rank skill, Butterfly Transformation, further illustrated this point. When the Golden Seal Emperor Butterfly attached itself to the mirror silver obsidian bull, the Golden Seal Emperor Butterfly was able to convert its own metal attribute energy into metal energy. It was quickly transmitted to the mirror silver obsidian bull. If the atomized butterfly powder was a slow-working power bank, then the atomized butterfly powder was a slow-working power bank. The current butterfly's metamorphosis was equivalent to directly absorbing the Golden Seal Emperor Butterfly's butterfly energy. The mirror silver obsidian bull suffered the same fate. He also gave the mirror silver obsidian bull the ability to fly and a temporary shield. The ability to fly increased the mirror silver obsidian bull's mobility, increased agility and speed. At the same time, it gave the mirror silver obsidian bulls more combat power. It could also hit flying targets. Currently, the mirror silver obsidian bulls couldn't enter the water. He no longer had any shortcomings in the battle environment. Apart from being able to attach itself to metal-type phase, the butterfly illusion could also be used on the enemy's side. It could also attach to the enemy's metal-type phase. The Golden Seal Emperor Butterfly's metal energy was sealed. It also had an injury vulnerability effect. Although this kind of control ability had its limits. But with the previous effects, it allowed the Golden Seal Emperor Butterfly's gold ability, Butterfly Illusion, could definitely be called an exquisite skill. This ability was a perfect match with the mirror silver obsidian bull. Chapter 16:10. If a spirit chi professional wanted to be powerful, he had to be strong. His contracted phase abilities could help each other. This was a very important point to weigh. More often than not, 1 + 1 was greater than 2. It was the Golden Seal Emperor Butterfly's diamond rank skill, Golden Seal Resurrection Shield. It was an extremely powerful single-target defensive skill. After casting a shield on the target's life force would be drained. The life force that was lost could be used to recharge the shield. To a certain extent, it was the same as doubling the phase damage tolerance. Among the single-target defensive abilities that Lin Yuan had seen, there were many defensive abilities. He could be considered an extremely outstanding existence. Platinum skill, Butterfly Wing Sacrifice. By sacrificing part of one's butterfly wings, increases the toughness of the shield. Toughness referred to the defensive capabilities of the shield. It could be said that the Golden Emperor Butterfly was the one that Lin Yuan was most satisfied with among all of Zhou Xi's phase. Forming a contract with the Golden Seal Emperor Butterfly was more like a girl. Back when the mirror silver obsidian bull was still an obsidian iron wild bull. Because Zhou Xian had participated in the All-Star Challenge competition, she was called the Iron Bull Princess. Even if the mirror silver obsidian bull was a lot more attractive than the obsidian iron wild bull, it still couldn't compare to the obsidian iron wild bull. However, even if she changed her title, she would only change it to Silver Ox Princess. Putting aside the fact that it was as unpleasant as the Iron Ox Princesses, it was also very likely that people would think the wrong way. The Golden Seal Emperor Butterfly was a pure defense-type fae, making Zhou Xi's combat style reckless. However, he was accepted by the team very well. All of the Golden Seal Emperor Butterfly's shields, as well as its increased toughness. The effects of his exclusive skills Tremor Counterattack and Shield Explosion Counterattack were enhanced. Chu Xi's big eyes sparkled as she stared at him. He looked like he was waiting for praise. Lin Yuan was not stingy with his praise. Chu Xia, you're amazing. With my current strength, I can even rank in the top 20 if I participate in the Radiant Sequence 100 selection. Chu Xi's strength had risen to such a level in such a short time. He could imagine that Chu Xi had gone out to train during this period of time. Just how tough was it? Right now Chu Xi really needed praise to gain a sense of satisfaction. Only one person could obtain sufficient satisfaction after working hard. Only then could he work harder to accomplish his goals. Moreover, what Lin Yuan said now was not empty talk. Chu Xi's strength had indeed reached such a level. Upon hearing that, Chu Xi pouted. He said with some disappointment, "Teacher doesn't allow me to participate in this year's Radiance 100 sequence selection. Otherwise, I would be able to fight alongside you." Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan's heart jumped. He was extremely grateful to Zhongyu. If Chu Xi really signed up and participated in the Radiance 100 sequence selection, given Chu Xi's strength, it was impossible for her to be eliminated. When he reached the arena, Lin Yuan realized that Chu Xi had appeared. He would do his best to eliminate her as soon as possible. As an elder brother, he could take any risk he wanted. However, no matter what, Lin Yuan would not allow a 16-year-old to do so. Chu Xi, who had yet to reach adulthood, was in danger. Chu Xi was still underage. After their parents passed away, Lin Yuan had to be a brother. To ensure Chu Xi's safety, when she came of age, she could participate in the Radiance 100 sequence selection. Even the selection of the Radiance envoys. Even if he really had to sacrifice himself for Hui Yao. That was her own choice after she came of age. Lin Yuan would smile and be proud of her. Then he would take his revenge. But now Lin Yuan would not allow Chu Xi to experience such a dangerous situation. If there was something, he still had to be her elder brother. Since Zhongyu had stopped Chu Xi, Lin Yuan did not say anything more to her. Instead, he took out the acne crystal muscle that he had prepared for his sister's transformation plan. Now there was the successful Golden Seal Emperor Butterfly. It allowed Lin Yuan's plan to transform his sister to have a milestone progress. Seeing Lin Yuan take out the acne crystal muscle, Chu Xi let out a cry. Chu Xi was not a creation master and could not see the acne crystal muscle's abilities and exclusive skills. However, it was hard not to like the acne crystal muscle in terms of appearance. When Lin Yuan had chosen the acne crystal muscle for Chu Xi. In fact, it was not only because of the acne crystal muscle's exclusive specialization. At the same time, it was also because of the acne crystal muscle's excellent abilities. While the Iron Thorn Cross Shield defended, it would shoot out thorns when attacked. When the thorns hit the opponent's body, it could apply the bloodthirsty excitement effect to the opponent. It could work well with the Mirror Silver Obsidian Bull. It could apply the Berserk effect to the Mirror Silver Obsidian Bull. When it touched the enemy target, it could charm the enemy. It could make the enemy target feel love and reduce their desire to fight. The Silver Foam Crystal Shield could be used on a group to increase the overall defense. It could also apply multiple layers on a target. Although the defense effect was not strong, it could be linked with the Golden Seal Emperor Butterfly's exclusive skill, Shield Explosion Counterattack. It could increase the lethality when the shield exploded. Lin Yuan said to Chu Xi, "This is a new fei I prepared for you." Chapter 16:11. Ever since something happened to the whale ocean trading. After Night Leaning Moon and Lin Yuan settled the whale ocean trading situation, she immediately ordered the spirit guards to seal off the whale ocean trading's old residence. They were going to wait for the Radiance 100 sequence to end. They were going to dig 3 feet into the ground and explore. Then they would completely erase the whale ocean trading's old residence. These spirit guards were sent to guard this place. All of them were elites among the spirit guards. Their strength might not have reached king class. But the most basic thing was that each of them had a platinum fei. Previously, many people had come to the whale ocean trading's main residence to inquire about information. The whale ocean trading was the Radiant Sect's pinnacle faction. The whale ocean trading was a veteran faction that cooperated with the top faction. There were even many rising factions that relied on the whale ocean trading to make a living. These faction members had come to investigate the situation. They had been sent away by the spirit guards. However, there had never been a little girl like this who was alone. She had appeared nearby. Therefore, this patrolling spirit guard had immediately He thought that the little girl had lost her way. He did not have too much vigilance. But when this spirit guard saw the strange smile on the little girl's face, his expression suddenly changed. He thought to himself that he had been too careless. Such a smile was evil and gloomy. It carried a disregard for life and a careless mockery. It was definitely not something that a young girl in the prime of her youth would reveal. But before this spirit guard could pull away, he then realized that the belt around his waist was being held tightly by the girl. This girl's hand seemed to have endless power. No matter how this spirit guard pulled, he could not pull this delicate little hand away. Just as the spirit guard wanted to shout for his companions around, suddenly he felt as though something had drilled into his body. It was growing wantonly in his body. This thing was strangling his throat. Every joint, even the blood. At that moment, this spirit guard heard the girl's extremely innocent tone. "Big brother, you are so nice. Since you are so nice, why don't you lend me your body first?" This inexplicable and horrifying sentence caused the spirit guard to not even have the ability to blink his eyes. When the spirit guard felt as though something was about to pry open his brain, this spirit guard lost his consciousness forever. On the side, the people who saw this scene only felt that a man was squatting on the ground lovingly helping a little girl solve a problem. It was peaceful and beautiful. At this moment, the man squatting on the ground suddenly stepped forward. He immediately hugged the black secret tome that was in the girl's arms, and the gray robe the girl was wearing. Chapter 16:12. Through this small piece of ginseng root, the second page of Revival could confirm. Diwanmi was already dead. Second page Revival did not expect the Radiance Federation to be so bold. He had personally gotten rid of Diwanmi, a living Class 5 creation master. Second page of Revival had subconsciously made up his mind. The ramets and seeds of the gardener Konjak had fallen into the hands of the Radiance Federation's lord. Since that was the case, he wanted to use the soft approach. He couldn't take it anymore. If he wanted to take back the ramets and seeds of the gardener's Konjak, he had to seize Hui Yao's lifeline. Hui Yao had no choice but to take out the ramets and seeds of the gardener's Konjak to trade with him. A moment later, a girl next door in a gray robe appeared, holding a black book in her hands. He walked towards the residence of the Freedom Federation's diplomatic mission. At this time, a burly man with an incomparably righteous appearance. He was currently in the Spirit Food Pavilion, gorging on sweet and sour pork ribs, ham pan-fried matsutake, chrysanthemum and squirrel fish. He was also drinking the Spirit Food Pavilion's signature liquor. He had a satisfied look on his face. Many people's gazes fell on this burly man. The burly man's righteous face made it hard for people to harbor ill feelings towards him. They would often subconsciously leave their goodwill to this burly man. At this moment, a middle-aged woman wearing jewelry appeared. He was playing with a string of top-grade jadeite in his hand. He sat in front of the burly man's table. She winked and said, "Do you mind if I sit here and have a few drinks with you?" As she spoke, she took out an elemental pearl. With a flick of his finger, the elemental pearl fell into the burly man's wine cup. Seeing this scene, the surrounding men couldn't help but feel envious. Feng Ro was an advanced Class 2 creation master. Feng Luan was the daughter of an advanced Class 4 creation master. After Feng Luan's death, Feng Ro received a huge inheritance. Furthermore, Feng Ro was a Class 2 creation master. He had his own capital to make money. Over the years, he had spent a lot of money to attract outstanding members of the opposite sex. This man with a face full of righteousness must have been targeted by Feng Ro. When Feng Ro had her eyes on someone, she wouldn't use force. However, she would continue to pester him. Someone really went home with Feng Ro within a week. Then Feng Ro would appear in the Spirit Food Pavilion again and flirt around. It couldn't be helped. With an inheritance, one could be willful. Otherwise, even if Feng Ro was a Class 2 creation master, he could no longer afford such a luxurious life. Buy the latest fashions home. Then Feng Ro personally added precious gemstones as accessories. And the more the better. With such vulgar nobility, it was hard to increase the phase strength every day. The distressed spirit chi professional shifted his gaze. Who didn't like rich women? Moreover, she was a rich woman who was willing to spend money on a man. An elemental pearl. How envious. The expression on the man's face was so righteous. Just when the crowd thought that the man was about to reject the offer with righteous words, A voice suddenly rang out. The man said, "Madam, from the first moment I saw you, I've already fallen deeply in love with you. You are like an epiphyllum blooming at midnight." As he spoke, everyone saw the man raise his wine glass. It fell into his palm. Then he took the elemental pearls. He quickly put it into his pocket. This kind of action that didn't mean what he said was completely wretched. But this man had a righteous face and acted like this. But it was hard for people to feel disgusted. Feng Rou didn't expect that she would hunt for beauties. She actually succeeded so quickly. Just based on this man's appearance, she would have to be attracted for at least 2 weeks. Feng Rou stood up and said, "Why don't we order some food to go home?" As soon as Feng Rou finished speaking, her hand, which was full of rings, was held by the man. "Beautiful madam, let me serve you when you go home." Feng Rou and the man walked out of the spirit food pavilion side by side. She didn't see the flash of playfulness in the man's eyes. At that moment, the man's eyes were like a butcher's. In the man's eyes, Feng Rou was like a white rabbit that could be pulled out and slaughtered at any time. The man looked at the night sky on the horizon. He silently revealed a complicated smile. His other palm gently flipped in the night sky. A pure black crystal cup flickered with a misty gray mist. It appeared in the man's hand. The man's fingers gently spun. This black crystal cup gently rotated on the man's fingertips. The gray mist condensed at the mouth of the cup and didn't dissipate. It carried an ominous aura. The man sighed in his heart. "It seems that I have a place to go these few days. The second page of revival. I want to see the crimson page that will replace the first page of fate. Why should I be addressed as Lord? As the 8th page of the pagoda canon, is there a secret in the pagoda canon that I don't know? If that's the case, why do I have to make these 6 meaningless pages? Let's see if I can use Hui Yao as a knife in my next plan. Dig out the bottom of the crimson page. If the crimson page doesn't come, then the second page of revival will die. Hehe, after you die, will there be a new person to replace the second page?" After dinner, Lin Yuan didn't stay in the Radiant Moon Palace. Zhou Xian originally wanted to go back to the manor with Lin Yuan. But Cold Moon asked her to stay. The Radiance 100 sequence was about to begin. Cold Moon didn't want Zhou Xian to be too distracted in these few days. Lin Yuan was too distracted. On the way back to the distant manor, Xianxia crawled out of Lin Yuan's hair. The speed at which the azure elemental shellfish produced the wind elemental heavenly maiden grade elemental pearls. And the speed at which the aquamarine elemental shellfish produced the water-type heavenly maiden grade elemental pearls. It was almost as fast as the mother of bloodbath's eating speed. Moreover, Lin had provided 30 young elemental shellfish. As long as the floating island whale hatched, Lin Yuan was confident that within 3 months, he would let the floating island whale reach Diamond X/Legend. After comprehending the willpower rune, he would advance toward a myth breed. At that time, the real Sky City could be built. The whale's cries resounded throughout the wilderness. It attracted many fays. Upon seeing this, Xianxia used his aura to prop up a shield. Xianxia wanted to take a look at this unique island whale embryo. What kind of island whale would it hatch? On the other hand, he was also secretly guarding against possible enemies. The current Radiance was in troubled times. It was unknown how many factions were lying in wait in the dark. The Freedom Federation and the Azure Federation gathered in the Radiance Federation. A battle between the 3 major federations was about to unfold. The Mother Goddess Federation, the Sand Continent Federation, the Storm Federation, the Ancient Abyss Federation, the Extreme Ice Federation, and the other 36 federations had Class 5 creation masters. It was impossible for them not to look at the Radiance Federation. At that moment, a series of whale cries echoed from the eggshell. Every time the floating island whale struggled with all its might, there would be more cracks on the eggshell. At that moment, the eggshell let out a crisp sound. A basketball-sized fragment was peeled off from the island whale embryo. It landed on the ground and emitted a faint green light. The little fellow in the eggshell seemed to see the dawn of victory. One after another, it crashed into this hole. Finally, it struggled to get out of the eggshell. The island whale followed the nature of phase to want to become stronger. The moment it was born, it would often devour its own eggshell. However, the floating island whale did not. Instead, it hugged Lin Yuan as soon as it hatched. It wagged its tail and shook its back at Lin Yuan. Chapter 16:14. It was as if it was telling Lin Yuan, "Come on my back. I'll take you for a ride." Shueishua's eyes almost popped out of their sockets in shock. What's going on? Since when can the island whale fly? Shueishua finally knew the wind energy in the eggshell. What exactly was going on? It was this wind energy that made an island whale that should belong to the sea. It became a life form that faced the sky. The island whale was only in the water and the floating island whale was amphibious. The meaning was completely different. The floating island whale had just hatched and should not have such high intelligence. Intelligence could dominate a fae's thoughts. It would let this fae know how to improve itself. The extremely strong intelligence proved that this island whale. There was also the possibility of continuous mutation. It was even possible that it would become a favored spirit in the future. Lin Yuan reached out and touched the floating island whale's head. He found that the touch of the floating island whale's head. It was fundamentally different from flesh and blood. It was like touching jade. The floating island whale was most similar to a blue whale among the creatures Lin Yuan had seen in his previous life. However, its body was not as long and narrow as a blue whale. Its back was very broad and not bloated at all. Due to its mutation, the floating island whale's wings were 3 times larger than an ordinary island whale's. Compared to the large winged whale's wings, they were proportionally larger. They were 1 size larger. Lin Yuan whispered to the floating island whale that kept trying to get close to him. "I still remember before you hatched. Is that the name I gave you? Go eat the eggshell first. After that, I'll take you to see your new home that can help you grow quickly." Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, the floating island whale stretched out its fin and hugged him for a moment. Then it leaned over gracefully, opened its mouth, held the eggshell and chewed. During this process Lin Yuan could feel. The floating island whale's aura was constantly rising. Suddenly a choice of 3 appeared. This proved that the floating island whale had swallowed the eggshell. Its grade had reached Elite X/Epic. And it was already evolving towards the bronze level. Lin Yuan checked the 3 exclusive skills that the floating island whale had obtained after reaching bronze. At present Lin Yuan was extremely cautious. As a fae, the floating island whale also had abilities and exclusive skills. The difference in exclusive skills would affect the floating island whale's future development. There was a huge difference. This was the reason why there were different grades of island whales. They were all adult island whales and some of them were rated as S-class in terms of strategic significance. However, the strategic significance of some island whales was only grade B. Chapter 16:15. If he really had to choose, he would not hesitate to choose the first exclusive skill, giant whale body. Thinking of this, he was no longer conflicted. Instead, he checked the floating island whale's 3rd exclusive skill. His eyes widened when he saw it. This exclusive skill was not recorded in the Hidden Moon Pavilion. It was not recorded in the island whale secret case. Looking at the introduction of this exclusive skill, Li Xian was certain. This exclusive skill had appeared because the island whale had mutated into a floating island whale. Floating island mystic realm. Open up a special space in the whale's abdomen by devouring wind elemental energy. The higher the purity of the wind elemental energy, the larger the space in the whale's abdomen. However, the largest area will not exceed twice the size of the body. By devouring water elemental energy, the flesh will be filled with a powerful fusion ability. It can take any living or non-living things into the fat layer of the whale's skin and use it to nourish these living or non-living things. The higher the purity of the water elemental energy, the stronger the fusion ability of the flesh and blood. The floating island mystic realm's exclusive skill used wind and water elemental energy. There was no wind elemental energy in an ordinary island whale's body. After the floating island whale flew into the sky, Lin Yuan actually did not need the floating island whale itself. How strong were their attacks and defenses? Whether it was blue, which had transformed into water. It was still relying on absorbing the aura released by the plant fae. The favored spirit, which was constantly getting stronger, was gray. It could protect the island whale very well. Moreover, the artificially cultivated island whale had a true defensive means. It was often the guardian fae on its back. It had a strong sense of tower defense. Lin Yuan was interested in the first exclusive skill, giant whale body. This was because the first exclusive skill, giant whale body, could increase the size of the floating island whale's back. He wanted to build a new sky city on the floating island whale's back. The larger the area of the floating island whale's back, the better. If the floating island whale chose the exclusive skill Floating Island Mystic Realm, it could open up a mystic realm in its abdomen with wind elemental energy. To some extent, it was equivalent to increasing the area of the floating island whale's back. It was like living in a flat floor. I live in a 2-story building. Although the area is different, but our actual use area is the same. The floating island whale needs to be hidden in the air. If the floating island whale could get more space without increasing its body size, it would be much better. This was undoubtedly good news for Lin Yuan. After all, the bigger the body, the easier it was to become a target. Grey Ash wanted to completely envelop the floating island whale. He would definitely face a lot of pressure. In addition, the secret realm in the whale's belly was a hidden space. Whether it was storing supplies or making some other arrangements, doing it in the whale's belly was definitely safer than doing it on the floating island whale's back. At that time he could be in the whale's belly. He used the ethereal jellyfish's exclusive skill, Space Tunnel. Build a passage from the underground space of return from faraway manor to the belly of the floating island whale. It could be said that the floating island mystic realm had opened up an abdominal space. There were pros and cons to using the giant whale's body to increase the floating island whale's size. While both sides were increasing the construction area, his exclusive skill, the floating island mystic realm, focused more on concealment. The giant whale's body increased its endurance, offensive and defensive capabilities. An elemental well appeared in the spirit lock spatial zone. Lin Yuan's preparation of pure wind elemental energy could be said to be unparalleled in the world. Therefore, he was confident that he could expand the floating island whale's abdomen to the maximum. That was twice its size. In that case, the area after choosing the floating island mystic realm, it would be a little larger than choosing the giant whale's body. In addition, the floating island mystic realm had an ability that the giant whale's body could not compare to. It could devour the water elemental energy and turn the floating island whale's flesh and blood into adhesives, building on the floating island whale's back. It was like transplanting the building materials into the floating island whale's flesh and blood. This method would undoubtedly make the buildings built on the floating island whale's back abnormally strong. It was like turning the buildings into a part of the floating island whale's body. Under normal circumstances, if one wanted to build on the floating island whale's back, a thick layer of soil was needed on the island whale's back first. Then the soil would be reinforced. This batch of soil would be tightly attached to the island whale's back. Then the foundation would be laid on the soil and construction would begin. This construction method made it so that no matter how many reinforcement methods were used, the buildings on the island whale's back could not be guaranteed to be very strong. It was fine when the island whale was swimming steadily on the sea. But when the island whale dived into the water or was attacked, the island whale was not enough to open a shield to protect the buildings on its back. Then these buildings were very likely to be separated from the island whale's body. It was impossible for the floating island whale to fly in the sky as smoothly as it did on the sea. Lin Yuan had been thinking about how to reinforce those 3 whale bones. He could use the whale bones to build on the floating island whale's back. Now all the problems were easily solved. The buildings grew in the floating island whale's fat layer. Even if the floating island whale did a 360-degree turn in the air, the buildings would not have any possibility of separating. At the same time, the floating island whale could also use the energy in the whale's skin and fat. It could nourish the living or dead things that had fused on its back. If he planted plant phase on the floating island whale's back, these plant phase would grow even faster. The dead things would be on the floating island whale's back. These dead things could also avoid the sun and wind, which would cause the weathering of the materials themselves. At that time, Gray's plant phase could produce weather. A small garden could be built on the island whale's back. Gray could then be bound to the floating island whale in the sky. Lin Yuan suddenly had an idea. If the floating island whale could use this method to absorb spiritual materials, wasn't this the same as sticking a film on a phone? The tempered film would work. Lin Yuan could use spiritual materials at will to modify the floating island whale. For example, he could use the dragon scales of a main dragon species Fei. He could let the floating island whale absorb them and cover the surface of its body. It could greatly increase the floating island whale's defensive ability. Or he could use the feathers of a wind-type main phoenix species Fae. He could let the floating island whale's wings absorb them. It could undoubtedly increase the floating island whale's speed. This ability allowed the floating island whale to strengthen itself through external objects. It increased a lot of plasticity. In Lin Yuan's eyes, the exclusive skill floating island mystic realm. It was the best choice to make the floating island whale a floating fortress. It could beat the strategic S-class exclusive skill giant whale body and the S+ class pilot whale lord. Lin Yuan chose the exclusive skill floating island mystic realm without hesitation. It was the floating island whale's exclusive skill. After Lin Yuan made his choice, the floating island whale began to chew on the eggshell to increase its strength. Instant Beast Evolution Quotient. Please bookmark this site so that you can read it online the next time there's an update. Starting to update the mobile version of Do 5. Chapter 16:16. During this process, the floating island whale's body kept growing. However, the increase was not large. After growing to about 6 meters in size, it stopped growing. Apparently, the eggshell was also finished chewing. Lin Yuan immediately used Morbius True Data. He wanted to see how the floating island whale's skills were. Fey name: floating island whale, spirit species, large-winged whale/island whale, Fey grade, silver 6/10, Fey type, water/wind, Fey quality. Elite skills: frowny face whale blood barrier. By burning one's blood essence, one can form an arc-shaped barrier on one's back that can protect everything on one's back. Water vapor whalebone. Turns the whalebone into water vapor. Through the water vapor, the whalebone captures the nutrients in the environment and recovers the body's consumption. Whalefish empowerment. Through the blowhole on the top of the head, the energy in the body can be released in an instant and supplied to the object that has fused with the body to replenish energy or repair it. Exclusive skill: frowny face floating island secret realm. By devouring wind elemental energy, open up a special space in the whale's belly. The higher the purity of the wind elemental energy, the larger the space in the whale's belly. However, the largest area will not exceed twice the size of the whale's body. By devouring the energy of the water element, the flesh and blood will be filled with a powerful fusion ability. Any living or non-living thing can be planted in the fat layer of the whale's skin and used to nourish these living or non-living things. The higher the purity of the water element, the stronger the fusion ability of the flesh and blood. He saw the floating island whale's 3 skills from normal to silver. Lin Yuan could not help but clench his fists tightly. His face was filled with excitement. Normally, the abilities of the island whale's normal and elite skills were fixed. Even if there were changes, the effects wouldn't be much different. Normal skills could produce whale blood barrier, whale blubber barrier, and elemental barrier. Of the 3 types of barriers, the whale blood barrier was the best. The elemental barrier consumed the elemental energy in the island whale's body. The blubber barrier consumed the body fat of the island whale. After these 2 things were used up, they were not as easy to recover as fresh blood. The heart of an adult island whale was bigger than a building. Next to the heart there were 4 spleens. Every time the heart contracted, the 4 spleens would pump out fresh blood. To some extent, as long as the island whale grew to adulthood, it would not be able to survive. He could treat the active skill whale blood barrier as a passive skill. Leaving it on 24 hours a day wouldn't have much of an effect on his body. Instead, it sped up his metabolism. Elite skills usually included strengthened baleen, extended baleen, tentacle baleen, and current baleen. There was no exception to these skills. They were all endurance skills for the island whale to recover its internal energy. Whether it was strengthened baleen, extended baleen, or tentacle baleen, none of them had escaped their original limits. It was just that the baleen's filtering ability had been increased. One increases the coverage of the baleen. One is to increase the subjective initiative of the baleen. However, these 3 skills were completely crushed by the current whalebone. Through the flow of water, the baleen filtered the energy in the surrounding environment. As a result, the floating island whale did not need to frequently open its mouth to filter food. The absorption of energy could be completed. Not only did it enhance the island whale's appearance, but it also enhanced the energy recovery ability in its body. The floating island whale's elite skill, vapor baleen. There was no doubt that it was a replica of the current whalebone. This was because the floating island whale had mastered 2 types of elemental energy. Therefore, the floating island whale's baleen could be transformed into these 2 types of elemental energy to filter food. When the water and air elements fused, they could turn into clouds. At that time, the floating island whale could filter the clouds. It could spread the clouds into the area covered by the gray clouds. He could comfortably eat his fill in this area. Usually, the island whale that obtained the current whalebone skill, even if its exclusive skills and other skills were amazing, its strategic level would also be rated A by the judges. This was because the island whale was in the sea. If it did not encounter an emergency, it would consume a lot of energy. It could almost be said to achieve unlimited endurance. There was no need to artificially replenish the island whale's energy midway. The floating island whale's normal and elite skills were obtained. They were all the best choices. In Lin Yuan's opinion, the silver skill, whale spout empowerment. It was a skill that would only be used in an emergency. First, the floating island whale would release the energy in its body in an instant. If it wanted to recover, it would undoubtedly take a long time. The effect of whale spout empowerment depended on the amount of energy in the floating island whale's body. In terms of energy, phase of the same grade. Usually, the larger the phase, the stronger the energy contained in its body. The island whale was the largest existence among all the living beings in the world. The energy in the island whale's body could be said to be abnormally terrifying. It was like a building rooted in the floating island whale's fat layer. When the energy in the floating island whale's body erupted, after the building was damaged, this energy would immediately repair the building. When encountering an enemy, when the island whale faced an enemy, it was like playing a tower defense game. I'm waiting for you at the Hidden Dragon Lake. I've prepared some wine. Previously, when you used the petals of the cinnabar sweet osmanthus to brew some osmanthus wine with low alcohol content. Lin Yuan originally wanted to take the osmanthus wine. But in the end, Lin Yuan did not take the osmanthus wine. Instead, he chose the flame wine that Zhou had brought over during the gathering. Blazing wine was a strong wine made from fire elemental energy and all kinds of fire elemental spirit materials. When you drink it, you will feel a burning sensation in your throat. In the past, Zhou had always relied on the flame wine to suppress the bad luck in his body. Lin Yuan took the flame wine and walked to the pavilion at the center of the lake. Sensing Lin Yuan's arrival, Little Black jumped out of the water and pounced at Lin Yuan. Every time Lin Yuan came to find Little Black would get his clothes wet. This time, Lin Yuan had the opportunity to quickly let the source sand precipitate the feathers made of day and night spirit silver. He waved his wings. With a turn, he avoided Little Black's position. After the water droplets on Little Black's body were dry, Lin Yuan landed on Little Black's neck and said to Little Black, "Little Black, I'm going to drink with my friends at the pavilion tonight. You should know your place. Don't keep chasing those angelfish of bliss all over the lake." Little Black heard and said in a soft tone, "Hey Lin Yuan, you drink at the Hidden Dragon Lake. I'll treat it as you accompanying me. I'll have a good sleep at the bottom of the Hidden Dragon Lake." Standing on Little Black's back, Lin Yuan looked at the beautiful scenery of the Hidden Dragon Lake. The Sunshine Monarch Lotus absorbed enough sunlight. It was as if there was a sun sinking in the lake. In the water, 7-colored angelfish of bliss swam in schools. It was as if there were rainbows on the side of the sun. On the leaves of the Sunshine Monarch Lotus, there were hundreds of pavilions with richly ornamented beams. The pavilions were fragrant with exotic flowers. No matter how one looked at it, it was like a fairyland. Little Black sent Lin Yuan to the pavilion. Lin Yuan, who was standing on the pavilion, didn't wait for long. He saw Gao Feng appear at the edge of the Hidden Dragon Lake. Gao Feng waved his hand at Lin Yuan and didn't need Little Black to pick him up. He waved his hand. He summoned a white hibiscus with a diameter of 3 meters. This white hibiscus was Gao Feng's Fey Breeze Hibiscus. Under Lin Yuan's observation, Gao Feng's Breeze Hibiscus. It had already been upgraded to Diamond X/Fantasy V. It had reached the peak level of the younger generation experts. The leaves of the Breeze Hibiscus swayed and created a breeze. It blew the high wind precisely in front of Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan noticed that the expression on Gao Feng's face was clearly smiling. But in his eyes, there was an unconcealable pressure. Lin Yuan simply handed over the flame wine in his hand to Gao Feng and said, "If you want to drink, this is the strong wine I prepared for you. Tonight, I will accompany you in this pavilion for the whole night. If you have anything to say, just say it to me." Hearing Lin Yuan's words, Gao Feng reached out and hugged Lin Yuan. Then he gulped down a mouthful of strong wine. This mouthful of wine made Gao Feng's blood clamor. Gao Feng was usually not a person who was good at expressing his feelings. Even if Gao Feng treated Lin Yuan as a brother, usually he would never do such an action like hugging. After drinking the wine, Gao Feng took a deep breath. He said to Lin Yuan, "Let me tell you a story. A boy from birth has always been in the hands of his grandfather. Whatever he wants he can get. Although his father is unreasonable and his mother is also very strict. But this boy is still able to do as he pleases and do as he pleases. When this boy was young he didn't make many friends. When he grew up he made a few good friends. Because of these friends, this boy suddenly got lucky and became the disciple of an expert. This boy has always disapproved of his father, but now he praises him to the sky every day. This boy is very happy. But one day this boy wants to gamble with his life for the glory of the Federation and the identity of the expert's disciple." Speaking of this, Gao Feng took another big mouthful of wine. Then he continued. Chapter 16-18. Even though this boy is an adult, he still thinks of himself as a child. You know, when it's on a boy, what does this boy think? Lin Yuan didn't respond to Gao Feng's question. Lin Yuan knew that Gao Feng didn't need someone to talk to him. What Gao Feng needed was to pour his heart out. He was just venting the true emotions that he had been suppressing in his heart. Obviously, the protagonist of Gao Feng's story, it was Gao Feng himself. Gao Feng picked up the jar and gulped down a few mouthfuls. Then he started coughing violently. He coughed as he spoke. This boy has always been afraid of death. Because this boy knows that if he dies he will never see this world again. I can't eat delicious food. Can't play in the all-star game. I can't drink with my brother anymore. But when this boy understands that this matter concerns the dignity of the Federation. I don't know what's wrong with this boy, but his blood just keeps surging. He's willing to protect this glory, even if he'll never see the world again, never eat good food, never play in the all-star match, never drink with his good brothers again. This boy is willing to accept everything. Don't you think this boy is stupid?" Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan looked at Gao Feng's eyes, which were red from choking on the liquor. She only felt that Gao Feng didn't seem like he was pouring out his heart, but more like he was saying goodbye. As the disciple of Her Holiness, Gao Feng had the responsibility to bear all of this. However, it was not that Gao Feng did not have the opportunity to reject. During the Radiance Hundreds elimination tournament, Gao Feng was a pure support class spirit chi professional. He could find many opportunities to eliminate himself. In this way, everything that happened afterwards would be settled. It had nothing to do with Gao Feng. However, Gao Feng did not choose to do so. No matter how reluctant he was to leave this world, no matter how afraid he was of death, he was also willing to bear all of this. This meant that Gao Feng had a dazzling spirit. Gao Feng's choice left Lin Yuan in his heart. He gave Gao Feng a thumbs up. At that moment, Lin Yuan did not know how to comfort Gao Feng. Lin Yuan summoned Genius and let it tool transformation. Lin Yuan held the silver mask that Genius had transformed into. He gently put it on his face. When Gao Feng saw Lin Yuan, he suddenly summoned his spirit cat. He was completely stunned. After Gao Feng understood his responsibilities, he said therefore he treated Black, who was also participating in the Radiance White sequence, as his teammate. Gao Feng was a pure support. When he chose this path, he felt that it was impossible. If Gao Feng wanted to fight, he had to believe in his teammates. After becoming Her Majesty's disciple, Gao Feng's glasses had become taller. Therefore, those who signed up to participate in the Radiance 100 sequence would not be able to do so. Lin Yuan, my marrow contract sacred source life form is too weak. I might drag you down during the battle. I really don't know why Master said that. My sacred source life form is the most powerful support type sacred source life form he has ever seen. Hearing Gao Feng's words, Lin Yuan's interest was piqued. As His Majesty Cicada Cry's vision was not something an ordinary person could compare to. It was the strongest support-type sacred source life form that His Majesty Cicada Cry had recognized. It definitely had unparalleled abilities and advantages. Lin Yuan had heard his master, the Moon Empress, mention it before. At present, it was the strongest known support-type sacred source life form. It was His Majesty Cicada Cry's Jie Yi Feng. His Majesty Cicada Cry had given it the title of the strongest support-type sacred source life form. He had taken it from his sacred source life form and placed it on Gao Feng. Gao Feng's marrow contract sacred source life form was definitely extraordinary. But why did Gao Feng think that his sacred source life form was useless? Would it even drag him down? At that moment Lin Yuan heard Gao Feng's voice. Lin Yuan, let me show you my sacred source life form. Even though neither of us can point to it in battle. Fortunately, my breeze hibiscus and spirit spring lily can help you recover spirit chi. The yellow spring lily can extend the life of your spirit life form. As Gao Feng spoke, Lin Yuan saw a crystal box emitting rainbow light. It appeared in front of Gao Feng. Chapter 1619. The crystal box emitted a rainbow glow and was exceptionally exquisite. A banshee was carved on it. The banshee was using both hands to grab something. At the same time, the banshee was wailing in pain. It was as if the banshee was grabbing something. Something in his body had also been pulled out. It could be said that the carvings on the crystal box were rather strange. But what made Lin Yuan feel strange was, it wasn't the pattern carved on the crystal box. Instead, it was the rainbow glow emitted by the crystal box. The rainbow glow was very similar to the glow emitted by an uncontracted sacred source life form. Gao Feng saw Lin Yuan examining his sacred source life form. Gao Feng ridiculed. Lin Yuan, this is what you're doing. Master didn't hesitate to use the source of his sacred source life form to help me upgrade my sacred source life form to 6 stars. I really don't know what Master is thinking. How many of the Freedom Federation's younger generation experts have a sacred source life form? Lin Yuan was secretly shocked by Gao Feng's words. His Majesty Cicada Cry was willing to use the source of his sacred source life form to upgrade Gao Feng's sacred source life form. This meant that Gao Feng's sacred source life form definitely had a powerful ability. It was important to note that the sacred source life form was depleted. It would take a long time for the sacred source life form to recover. His Majesty Cicada Cry had used this method to upgrade Gao Feng's sacred source life form's star. He didn't have 2 years. His Majesty Cicada Cry's sacred source life form would not be able to upgrade its star. Lin Yuan understood from Gao Feng's words. Gao Feng's sacred source life form's ability was to target other sacred source life forms. Gao Feng clearly didn't know what he would be facing in this battle. What kind of enemy would they be? Lin Yuan was willing to bet that his opponent would be someone with a sacred source life form. It would definitely not be lower than the top 3. Might even be more than that. Lin Yuan couldn't help but be even more curious about Gao Feng's sacred source life form. Lin Yuan immediately used Morbius True Data. He began to examine Gao Feng's sacred source life form. Sacred source name, source family / sacred source species, memory eater music box, sacred source star type, 6 stars, sacred source type, light / soul function frowny face memory magic scissors. Select a sacred source life form and cut off the sacred source life form's memory of 1 function. During this period, the sacred source life form will not be able to use its forgotten functions. Every time its life stage increases, 1 more sacred source life form's function can be sealed. Banishing melody. Banish oneself from one's memory. At the same time, based on one's life rank, each increase in one's life rank allows 1 more target to be banished along with the sacred source life form. Lin Yuan was so shocked that his mouth gaped open. He blinked his eyes for a long time. If it wasn't for the fact that he knew Gao Feng very well and knew that he wasn't a Versailles person, Lin Yuan wouldn't have believed him. At that moment Lin Yuan even suspected Gao Feng. Was he in Versailles now? It could be said that Gao Feng's sacred source life form was the memory-eating music box. It was the bane of all sacred source life forms. Just the first function, the memory magic scissors, was the nightmare of countless sacred source life forms. While others were using sacred source life forms, Gao Feng could use the music box to restrict his opponent. Sacred source life forms below 4 star only had 1 function. In other words, from the moment Gao Feng obtained the memory-eating music box, Gao Feng could use his sacred source life form to restrict the sacred source life form of others. He could cut off the sacred source life form's memory of its function. Essentially, he could seal off the sacred source life form's function. This function was a little too overpowered. Gao Feng's sacred source life form had reached 6-star. It had reached its growth stage. Gao Feng could use the memory magic scissors function. He could select 2 sacred source life forms at the same time. He could cut off the 2 sacred source life forms' functions separately. The mutual restraint between sacred source life forms was definitely related to the star level. Under normal circumstances, a sacred source life form with a controlling function. It was very difficult to control a sacred source life form with a higher star level than the sacred source life form. But against an opponent of the same level, or against an opponent with a lower star level than the sacred source life form, the memory-eating music box was absolutely invincible. No matter how strong the Freedom Federation's envoy was, a sacred source life form's star level could not exceed 6-star. Unless the Freedom Federation also had someone who was willing to harm their own interests to help their disciple. Gao Feng's sacred source life form did not have any offensive capabilities. But just by using the memory magic scissors function, he could make the sacred source life form forget 2 functions. Even though the sacred source life form had different functions at every stage. But there was always one function that played a central role. After the central function was banned, the sacred source life form's power would be greatly reduced. Lin Yuan's sacred source life form, the sacred sword-wielding queen. As long as the queen's skirt function was banned, the queen had forgotten about the skirt function. The world and laws engraved within the skirt would not be able to be used. Naturally, it could not be used. Sword skills in sacred sword mode could not be used. But that was not the worst part. Most importantly, the second function of the sacred source life form, the music box, was to banish music. Chapter 16:20. After thinking for a while, Gao Feng suddenly felt that his sacred source life form, the memory-eating music box, was not that bad. Gao Feng heard Lin Yuan continue to count. You are walking the path of a pure support. If the sacred source life form has strong offensive abilities, you will be troubled. Because it is difficult for your sacred source life form to match your fighting style. In a team, it will confuse your position. You don't have to worry about that now. Gao Feng felt that Lin Yuan's words were very reasonable. Previously, his thoughts had only burrowed into the competition. Now that he was looking at it from the perspective of the competition, his sacred source life form's abilities were really good. After all, any support-type phase abilities could not effectively counter the sacred source life form's abilities. But now he could. Gao Feng suddenly felt a surge of confidence. As a pure support-type spirit chi professional, Gao Feng had been unable to participate in the S tournament. It was because he could not find suitable teammates. Anyone who tried to rope in his teammates was too trashy. They could not match his strength. Gao Feng had suddenly broadened his horizons and came into contact with Zhongzhe, Gulang, and the others. He was also afraid that he would be a burden to His Holiness's disciples, who were on the same level as him. He would make others feel that he was trash. Gao Feng had been in a state of lack of confidence for the past few months. Gao Feng fell into such a state. It was because of the Radiant Sequence 100 selection. Lu Jia won the martial arena. Lin Yuan and Zhongzhe participated in the civil and martial arena. The strength they displayed was too shocking. Gao Feng, who had regained his confidence, wanted to pull Lin Yuan for a few drinks. At that moment he heard Lin Yuan say, "The day after tomorrow we will go on stage." Zhongzhe and Gulang should have returned from their training in the Abyss World. And he seems to be in the royal capital recently. Lu Jia can also return to the Return from Faraway Manor tomorrow night. I think the few of us should have a small gathering. As he spoke, Lin Yuan told his plan to Gao Feng. From the moment he knew that he would be fighting alongside Lin Yuan, Gao Feng no longer had any fear in his heart. Now that he heard that Lin Yuan wanted to lead the other His Holiness disciples into the competition, to compete with the younger generation of the Freedom Federation, Gao Feng could not help but feel a surge of hot blood in his heart. As a pure support, the more teammates he had, the more valuable he would be. Gao Feng couldn't bring out his greatest value by just assisting one person. At the same time, he would become the first target of the enemy. A few more strong teammates could better protect Gao Feng's safety. Through Lin Yuan's information, Gao Feng knew. On the other side were 3 people favored by the Freedom Federation. These 3 people definitely had sacred source life forms. In that case, his sacred source life form, the memory-eating music box, it could finally be put to good use. Gao Feng nodded. All right. I'll contact Gu Lang and Zhongzhe now. But honestly speaking, Zhongzhe and Gu Lang have always been at odds with He. Is it really okay to find on her? Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan gently shook his head. Any reasonable person, even if they didn't get along with each other before, gathering together at such a time, there was no reason not to deal with him. The hostility between Zhongzhe, Gu Lang and He. They were merely opponents of the younger generation. There was just some competition in terms of resources. At such a time, if he didn't go and mess up this situation, Zhongzhe and Gu Lang might take the initiative to invite He over. On the Freedom Federation's side, they would send the younger generation to stir up trouble. On the Radiance Federation's side, the younger generation would naturally take over. While the Freedom Federation was plotting against the Radiance Federation, the Radiance Federation would not sit still and wait for death. Just like how those who want to kill will always be killed, this was an unchanging principle since ancient times. Gao Feng called Gu Lang and Zhongzhe. On the other hand, Lin Yuan dialed He's number. At that moment, He was beside an elegant-looking middle-aged man. Master, I still need a lot of pure water elemental energy and earth elemental energy. Only then can my suppressing mountain Kuei and awakening hibernation drake improve further. Upon hearing He's words, the elegant-looking man in front of He put down the book in his hand. A trace of helplessness appeared on his face. A trace of helplessness appeared on his face. He was going to the Imperial Court's meeting tomorrow. At such a time, how could he still trouble Chef Supreme, Bamboo Monarch and the Moon Empress? To help produce high-purity heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls? Although he was the Radiance Majesty and was powerful, but in the preparation of these high-end resources, he still had to find the 3 Class 5 creation masters who were also majesties for help. Ji Changdeng could only say to He. Before the Radiance 100 sequence, your suppressing mountain Kuei and awakening hibernation drake should not have a chance to improve. Speaking of this, Ji Changdeng thought of old Gu who was beside He. He reported the situation to him. Ji Changdeng asked He. I heard that you had a conflict with the Moon Empress disciple. Is there such a thing? Upon hearing that, He shrunk his neck. As a disciple, He understood Ji Changdeng's feelings for the Moon Empress the best. And he felt that between him and Lin Yuan, it could be considered that no discord, no concord. After exchanging contact information, they should already be considered as friends. Chapter 1621. And he started from the moment the Freedom Federation's envoy arrived at the Radiance sect. He had been suppressing the killing intent in his heart. As long as he had the chance to play. And he decided to use it against Lin Yuan. It was a trump card that he had always kept at the bottom of the box. Kill to your heart's content. The role model in He's heart had always been his senior brother. He was now the 3rd Radiance envoy. It could be said that He had always been working hard to become a Radiance envoy. And he knew that Lin Yuan would definitely look for Zhongzhe and Gu Lang for this meeting. And he had snatched a sacred source life form from Gu Lang not long ago. Although this sacred source life form had been lost to Lin Yuan by He in the end, however, the grudge between him and Gu Lang had been formed. In fact, it wasn't just this one grudge. Previously, He, Gu Lang and Zhongzhe had also formed many grudges. And he was a hot-tempered person. Most of the time he was the one who took the initiative to provoke others. This time He decided not to provoke Zhongzhe and Gu Lang. When it was time to get down to business, he had to get down to business. The moment He arrived at the entrance of Gui Yuan Manor. This immediately attracted the attention of Xue Shuo by Feng Lon Lian, and the others who had been staying in the manor. Fortunately, the Mother of Bloodbath knew He. Back then, when the Mother of Bloodbath had awakened its favored spirit bloodline. And he also helped the Mother of Bloodbath resist the spying marine life forms in the distant sea. Therefore, it was reasonable for the Mother of Bloodbath to owe He a favor. The Mother of Bloodbath decided to personally go to the entrance of the manor to pick up He. Seeing the Mother of Bloodbath, He's eyes lit up. Lin Yuan asked me to attend the banquet. Take me to see him. Upon hearing In He's words, the mother of Bloodbath gave him a strange look. Why is Lin Yuan inviting you to a banquet so late at night? Moreover, wasn't Lin Yuan drinking and chatting with Gao Feng at the hidden Wurm Lake tonight? Even if Lin Yuan wants to talk to you, it should be during the day, right? Lin Yuan and In He knew each other anyway. The mother of Bloodbath said. Let's go. I'll bring you to Lin Yuan. It was In He's first time coming to the Return from Faraway Manor. As soon as he entered the manor, before he could even sigh at the layout of the Return from Faraway Manor, the hidden dragon lake in the distance was as bright as day. The mother of Bloodbath brought In He to the hidden Wurm Lake. Gao Feng and Lin Yuan immediately discovered In He who had followed the mother of Bloodbath. Upon seeing In He, Lin Yuan raised his eyebrows. Gao Feng had just hung up the phone with Zhongzhe and Gulang. He had just finished calling In He. Why didn't he come here now? I was the one who greeted you first and I even extended my hand. But you're putting on airs. On the contrary, a single sentence from her made me sound sarcastic. You even summoned your fays. Who's afraid of who? My fays are all support type and can't beat you. But Lin Yuan can't watch me get beaten. Gao Feng was angry. Lin Yuan only felt that his head was a little swollen. When Zhongzhe and Gulang came, if In He's current attitude, what kind of storm would it cause? The conflict between Gao Feng and In He, in Lin Yuan's opinion, the cause was because of In He. So Lin Yuan's face darkened and he said to In He very seriously. At this juncture where everyone needs to be united, I hope that we all, regardless of what happened before, we can all be friends. In He say hello to Gao Feng. When Zhongzhe and Gulang come, don't have conflicts with each other. If people can't unite at this time, then I don't think I'm qualified to take the Radiance Envoy as a goal to strive for. Hearing Lin Yuan's words, In He was stunned. He just felt a little uncomfortable in his heart. But In He was not an unreasonable person. Plus, Lin Yuan was an acknowledged friend of In He. So In He carefully pondered Lin Yuan's words. After thinking about it, In He's frowning brows stretched out. He turned his head and said to Gao Feng. My name is In He. I'm not used to having physical contact with strangers. We've met today. Gao Feng had roughly guessed what kind of person In He was. Gao Feng didn't care about In He's attitude just now. At this time, facing other His Holiness's disciples, Lin Yuan being able to stand up for him made Gao Feng feel quite touched. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.